please rise for the invocation by Reverend Reggie Longpride, pastor, Exodus Missionary Outreach Church.
Let us pray. Dear eternal, ever blessed God, we just thank you for this time of meeting. We thank you for all of our city officials. We thank you for every ward that is represented here this evening. Now we ask that you bless us in all our endeavors and our decisions that we'll make this evening. In the glorious name of God we've prayed. Amen and amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start with special presentations from our boards and commissions. And just to remind everyone, our boards and commissions comprise about 0.5% of the people of Hickory serving on those boards, about 200 people. And they provide very meaningful input for council and staff as we try to make the right decisions and carry them out on your behalf. We'll start off with Kathy Ivey, Library Advisory Board.
Mayor Wright, members of the City Council, Mr. Berry, and Mr. Crone. I'm here to present the work plan of 2014-15 for the Hickory Public Library Advisory Board. This year, our objectives are for each board member to participate in a minimum of 4 specific volunteer activities related to library programming or operations, to contribute at least 1 article about the library to the Hickory Daily Record, to the Friends of the Library quarterly newsletter, speak to the neighborhood college class during its library visit, and make at least 1 appearance on WHKY's First Talk program. Our third objective is to advocate for public library issues with state legislators, the state library, and local funders. Our fourth objective is to form a subcommittee to develop programs and other auxiliary activities in conjunction with the appearance of author Rebecca Skloot at the library on October 23, 2014. Number 5, the board will receive updates from staff on relevant library technology issues at least once annually. Number 6, we will assist with a calendar year-end effort to solicit donations to the library's endowment. And finally, we've added an objective this year to participate in a strategic planning process that will culminate in a new 3- to 5-year plan to provide direction for future library operations, collections, and programs. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions about that work plan? All I keep hearing is great things about the libraries and the programs and the involvement of the youth.
We have a great library system.
Program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Most cities our size in North Carolina do not have libraries. We're pleased to have not 1 but 2. And I think that's a good investment for a reasonable amount of our tax dollars. It is, it's not a tiny piece of the budget, but I think it's very reasonable for the people who need to use that. Dave Leonetti, Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. I'm here tonight to present the work plan for the Citizens Advisory Committee. They do not receive a budget allocation, so I'm just going to kind of give you a brief description of their activities that they plan for the upcoming year. The purpose of the 7-member commission is to represent the citizens of Hickory in the enactment of our community development programs. More specifically, this group reviews and makes recommendations on which projects to fund each year in the areas of housing, community development, redevelopment and some of those activities, namely our North Carolina Housing Finance Agency urgent repair grants that we receive and our community development block grant funding. These projects must principally be for the benefit of low to moderate income individuals. Some of the highlights in this year's, the current year's budget for community development include a new picnic shelter and bathrooms at Kiwanis Park that they're just getting started over there, and also the restoration of the former Ridgeview Public Library. This year, they're planning the exterior renovation, and they're hoping that the exterior will be completed in the next couple of months, and then the next phase would go on to be the renovation of the interior of the building. The committee is going to continue to review applications for assistance through the city's housing rehabilitation and their down payment assistance programs. In addition, the committee will continue to investigate creative strategies to advance the cause of affordable housing in the community, especially at the city-owned parcels that we have accumulated over the years. And with that, that basically is their activities in a nutshell, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
How many dollars will that commission make recommendations to us on?
The CDBG budget, our grant hovers right around $300,000, and then program income varies each year. Usually it's around the $150,000 to $180,000 range. And by program income, I mean the money that we receive from repayment of loans and other previous obligations.
And how many citizens do we have on the committee?
There are 7 spots on the committee, and we have 1 vacancy currently. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Leonetti. Community appearance, Steve Bowman.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Wright, council members, Mr. Berry, and Mr. Crone. It's my pleasure tonight to present the Community Appearance Commission work plan and budget for 2014. The mission statement for the Appearances Commission is to enhance and improve the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city, and we do that with 10 very active commission members, and we're very enthusiastic about what they do, and we have a very small budget. And we're here tonight to show you some of our plans and also to ask you for a very modest increase in our budget. We essentially have 2 primary areas in our budget. One is the community appearance grants, which typically historically has always been $30,000. We're asking for a $5,000 increase this year. And then the second part that we administer has been the landscape grants, which is $10,000, and we're leaving that the same. The litter contracts, the Arbor Day, litter education, beautification awards are all unchanged as well. Why the increase request? We find ourselves with many more applications or requests for appearance grants. We get 3 months into our calendar year and we've exhausted our budget. And that's a good thing, because I've been on the Appearances Commission for several years, and I know some years we actually had money left over that wasn't utilized, but that's not the case any longer. And what's happening is word is getting out about the commission, about the budget money, and we have more requests, and that's a very positive thing for the city. So we're asking you for a little additional money. We have 10 very eager, enthusiastic people, and I want to put these people to work, and I want to keep them engaged in what we're doing. So we need a little more money from the city. We're hoping you'll give that due consideration. Just to give you an idea of how we've spent the taxpayers' money, since 1999, we've awarded 110 grants totaling right at $400,000. And that's leveraged a little over $1 million in private investment for a total investment in the Greater Hickory area of almost $1.5 million. So we're using the money. The money's going to a good purpose. This is a map that I had Cal Overby prepare for us, and we keep it updated. We actually go in and pinpoint the areas where the money is being sent in the city. We try not to get too polarized in an area, and we're trying to distribute the money as equally proportionally as we can. I think that's it. I think each council member received a work plan from the commission. Does everyone have that? Okay, that's essentially unchanged. I won't go into detail on that. You all have a copy of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Community Relations, Neil Orgain.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, letting me present our work plan to you. Last year, you all gave us $17,000, and you've been giving that to us for the past couple of years, and we're going to ask for that amount again this year. This past year, we celebrated our 50th anniversary, so we've been a part of the commission for 50 years, or the community, 50 years. And in our committee, we have 15 people. We can have no more than 5 white people, no more than 5 African Americans. We have 3 other minorities, and then we have 2 students from the Hickory Youth Council. And within the 5 white and the 5 African American, we have 1 slot for a disabled person. So that's the total of 15 people that we have on the council. There are 4 projects that we do throughout the year. In the fall, we have an outreach event, and for the past few years, we've had that at the Carolina Theater, and we've offered 2 movies. And when people come, we ask them to bring a canned good that we give to CMC, or CCM has been the recipient of that for the past couple of years, and each year we reevaluate where we want to give our canned goods. And at all of our events, of course, our goal is multicultural people, that we get a broad mix of people from our community. The second event is the Community Relations Committee's retreat. And we have our retreat coming up next week. And just to give you a sample of what we're doing, this year we're meeting at the Catawba County Chamber of Commerce, and Danny Hearn will be speaking to us, and he will be giving us studies that led to the Innovate Catawba, in which community problems and potential resources for solutions are identified. And then we also have Diane Little with CDCC, and she will be doing leadership training, which includes a team frames assessment to gauge individual perceptions of the team's overall status and effectiveness. Results will reveal how well the team gets along, how well individuals understand their roles, etc. And one of the reasons we're doing this is because we meet once a month for 1 hour. And we have people from all over the city of Hickory. We really don't know each other well. And so Diane we filled out a questionnaire, and so she's going to compile that information and help us hopefully know each other better. And then the other item that we do, well, we have 2 other ones. One is the annual meeting, which we have awards recognition, and then we usually have a multicultural event or an event there, meaning last year we had one of the jazz bands from Hickory High play. And then, of course, we have our grant program, which is in the fall and the spring, and that's where the bulk of our money goes. And this year, we're asking for $12,400 of the $17,000 to go into the grants. And that really is the most fun, because we get to give away money to a lot of needy organizations. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Hickory International Council, Annie Nassar.
Good evening. Mayor Wright, members of the council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. Again, presenting to you. I'm sorry? You don't? I'll talk a little bit. I'm presenting the Hickory International Council work plan and budget. We are, I'm going to summarize the budget once the presentation is up, but we are not asking for any additional amount. I just want to explain to you the purpose of the budget and how it's used. And also I want to state that we have reached more like a steady state in our activities every year. And I do have some plans with your acceptance to grow it in the future. But I also want to start by saying that we are right now at 9 countries represented in the Council. Reading them in alphabetical order, we have Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Ghana, Japan, Lebanon, Romania, and the United States. And hopefully in the next month or so, we have a member coming from India. So we'll have 10 countries at that time. So I'm going to start by saying that next week we have the Model UN at Lenoir Rhyne University, which is sponsored by the HIC, a major sponsor, as well as the Boy Scouts of America. It'll be on Tuesday and Wednesday at NDP Monroe Auditorium and the rest of Lenoir Rhyne. We sponsor the event for $3,000. We have continued to do that, and we make sure it's less than 50% of what they need, what the budget is. So at this point, our growth possibility is to have Lenoir Rhyne take it over. And that was the whole goal from the beginning, is to eventually have Lenoir Rhyne take over this event. At this time, they're still allowing us to use the facilities, but at some point they will take over. The second annual International Film Festival for Children, we've switched from the Hickory International Spring Fest into the Children Film Festival. And we have a logo contest for this festival. I received 130 entries from 2nd, 3rd grade up to 6th grade from all public schools, Catawba, Hickory, and Newton Conover. And I just selected 4 to put up here, and we will be going through this list in the next couple of weeks to announce the winner of these logo. But we are presenting on April 8, 9, and 10, 3 days. Hickory Public Schools will take first day, Catawba County 2nd day, and then Newton Conover the 3rd day, and they will bring their children from the 2nd and 3rd grade as well as the middle school. So we'll be busy at the Salt Block Auditorium all 3 days, and this is the whole goal, is to introduce the children to foreign movies. These are very short movies that will represent the cultures of those countries. We have the folk mood coming in always in July. We've got Taiwan, Turkey, Russia, Colombia, Hawaii, and 5 other countries to be represented later on. Salt Block Auditorium, again, we sponsor this event. And this is our 4th year bringing it over here. This is the farthest that they come from Waynesville, North Carolina, all the way to Hickory, as far east as they go. We have a $1,000 community grant or to $500, which are money we give to projects within the city, one within the city for sure, or 2, but also one within the county, if applicable, up to $500 per event. If we only have one project, we can grant a $1,000 event. And these are some of the recipients of these grants in the last 4 years. We have community connections, and this is collaboration with Foot Candle Film Society. We do this at the Carolina Theater. We show foreign movies 4 times a year, and we just showed the Saudi Arabia movie Wajda last Wednesday. And that was almost Academy Award nominee, but it wasn't. But it was a great movie, the first ever Saudi Arabian movie that was filmed totally in Saudi Arabia by female Saudi Arabian directors. So we thought that was neat, and it was received very well. And lastly, we have the Great Decisions, which is topics that we discuss every year. We select 6 out of the top 8 that are listed in the Great Decisions book. And we started with 5 or 6 people. Now we are at 28. The cap is 30. We bring 30 books and we share them. So we have reached the maximum that we can have per event. And it usually takes place in September, October timeframe. So maybe we can grow it into twice a year. So basically, this is the budget, the Model UN 3000, the International Film Festival, and so forth. We will stay at 11.5 for the year. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, I just wanted to mention, we will have a visitation from our sister cities in Altenburg, Altenburg this summer. I'm not sure about the dates.
Just make sure you connect us with it.
Will do.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hickory Regional Planning Commission, Mr. Brian Frazier.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. I'm just here to present the Regional Planning Commission's fiscal year 14-15 budget and work plan. Good news is the budget, they're not asking for any money, again, for the 7th year in a row. First thing that they're looking at doing is, again, conducting annual reviews of Hickory by Choice 2030 and the Land Development Code, as we've done on an annual basis since you all adopted the Hickory by Choice plan and adopted the code 3 years ago now. Monitor as necessary recommended amendments to both documents. Continue again to expeditiously review all permits and petitions pertaining to rezoning, special use permits, variances, appeals, and the like. Continue to monitor the city's EPA Brownfield grant, provide any necessary assistance as required with staff. Continue to stay current on all planning issues, local and national, and continue training if requested, and provide direction to city planning staff regarding any upcoming long-range planning projects. So Planning Commission has quite a bit on their plate. We're just about ready to bring to council the Land Development Code amendments from the previous year. We were delayed for a few months because of the General Assembly's changing the state statutes regarding Board of Adjustment. So that'll be coming to you, I think, at the end of March, beginning of April. I think the first meeting in April. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Youth Council, Tony Abernathy.
Standing in for Tony, it will be our own Dave Leonetti. Yes. The youngest guy we got around.
Yeah, I'm here to present the Youth Council's budget. Ms. Abernathy is running a little late, unfortunately. But basically, the Youth Council has 3 main purposes, and one of those is to learn about city government, and then they perform community service projects, and then they also provide a voice for the youth in the city government about the issues that affect them. So in terms of their budget and activities each year, they spend about $300 each year traveling to the different city departments. We visit at least 3 departments every year to tour them. And then also we have a number of different departments that kind of the city hall departments. We get a lot of them to come to us. We have our meetings here at City Hall. They actively participate in the North Carolina State Youth Council. So there's some travel expenses in the budget to allow them. We pay roughly 50% of the cost for them, and then myself to attend those. Well, I chaperone. They attend the conferences throughout the state. This past year, we went to Durham, where they had a conference where they learned a lot about gun violence and teen stress and suicide issues. So it was pretty good experience for them. They learned a lot. It was a little depressing, but they had a very good time. One of the other the youth council members serve on a number of boards and commissions with the city. Most of those are voting members as well. Then the other purpose, they hold events that involve the fellow youth of the city. One of those events that we've begun recently is they just did a teen art competition, and they just received a number of submissions, and hopefully we'll be displaying those at Patrick Beaver Memorial Library shortly in their new teen section that they just enacted. That they're just kind of getting that started. Also, the Youth Council, they have a dance marathon coming up. They're going to be on March 14th at Neil Clark Park. They're going to be dancing for 4 hours in order to raise money for the backpack program that Catawba County Social Services runs. So if you're interested in making a donation, find a Youth Council member, or you can just find me, and I'll make sure that gets into the kitty. The backpack program is, for those of you who don't know, it's a program that provides Students with limited means, it provides them a backpack that they fill with food every Friday so that they have food to go home with over the weekend. And then another event that they have, they applied for and received a grant from the State Youth Council to hold a youth sports camp that they're planning for the middle of May this year, where they're going to invite youth age 6 to 11 to come out to Neil Clark Park and kind of learn some of the fundamentals of soccer and basketball. Kind of a one-day morning thing. We're going to just basically break them into groups by age and teach them a little bit about and expose them to some of the different sports and show them the importance of keeping active in the community. With that, that's basically kind of some of the stuff that we're doing this year. And each year in August, they hold a planning retreat where they kind of come up with the ideas for next year. So that's about what they're planning for this year. And in August of next year, we'll have a better idea of what they're looking to do. Any questions?
Are you dancing?
What?
Are you going to dance?
I am not planning on dancing. No.
The mayor was a little disappointed that he was not asked to dance. But that's beside the point.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Leonetti.
Thanks, sir.
Historic Preservation, Larry Triplett. Remember, each of these committees represents about 16 people on average.
Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, I'm with the Historic Preservation Committee. And as you know, we review applications for appropriateness, review nominations for National Historic Places, and make recommendations for new historic districts and landmarks. One thing that we've done this year and are continuing to do is the implementation of a plaque program to mark the historic homes. It is a shared expense with the community, with the homeowner, 50% and 50% of the city. We've obtained $8,000 this year for that. Another thing we're working on is a grant to update the city survey of historic properties. We should know that grant is for about $12,000. And we should know about that in May. Another thing we do is try to educate the community about historic preservation. We had a historic district symposium January 30th, and it's pretty well attended for the weather. And we'll continue to provide training and access to awareness to the property owners of historic preservation. So that's pretty much what we've got going on. Is there any questions for the... Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Tony Wood, Parks and Recreation.
Mayor Wright, council members, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and present. I want to start by putting out something for you. Thank you. This is a copy of our revamped Leisure Pursuits magazine. Thank you. If you recall, the format of the old one, it was much smaller. And this just became available at our last commission meeting, and it's an impressive publication. The staff did a tremendous job working on this and reformatting it. This is published twice a year and is available to the citizens, and it covers pretty much all of the programming that's available to them through Parks and Recreation. We're very proud of the job that the staff did, and they should be commended for that. It's been a busy year at Parks and Rec, a lot of activity. I'm here to present the work plan and go over some of the accomplishments that have been made on last year's work plan. The first objective is to emphasize the Park and Recreation Department's plans and efforts to renovate and upgrade existing facilities, and when possible to collaborate with community partners to assist in funding opportunities for the improvements. Some of the things that have been completed or were completed last year: reconstruction of the Hickory City Park lower tennis courts. That is a project that has been completed.
installation of a new HVAC system at Neil Clark Gym. The gym floor was also replaced. That's completed. There's a picture of the facility now. Very nice. Another project is the replacement of the seating, the stadium seating at LP Friends. We're working in collaboration with Hickory Baseball to accomplish that, and it's underway. The seats have been removed. The area that you see there will be the new picnic and club level seating. There have been some enhancements to the entryway, painting, replacement of the concrete there at the entrance, and some work around the statues. It's a closer view of that. And the cafe is being totally renovated. It's in process now, as you can see. And new field lighting to bring it up to Major League Baseball standards for lighting. And that is also all of this is being done in collaboration with Hickory Baseball. In process, budgeted and not complete, is the replacement of the gym floor at Ridgeview. And then in the planning stages are the improvements to Rotary Geithner Park building, and that's being done as a component of the Lackey Family Project, which everybody is aware of, and yet another thing that's being done in collaboration with private funding. The lighting at Henry Fork Regional has been completed, and yet another project that's been done in collaboration with an outside entity, the CVYSA. Next objective, to support the city in its efforts to implement the Inspiring Spaces Plan. And there's a few projects that stand out that are getting special emphasis. One is the waterfront park. That's part of the Lackey project, and that is still in the planning stages. A part of the pursuit of aquatic recreation are splash pads in each quadrant of the city. Greenways and blueways, Cloninger Mill Park, and then, of course, the LP Friends Stadium renovations. We have a subcommittee that's working with the Greater Hickory Tennis Association to renovate the tennis complex at Hickory City Park. We have met with them on a couple of occasions now, and we're in the idea stage. We're generating ideas and coming up with costs and how those costs will be shared and what kind of contribution they'll be able to make, but that's an ongoing effort now. The Cloninger Mill Park is part of the approved park master site plan, and that's long range, and all of these objectives are subject to funding. They're prioritized based on funding. The development of a dog park is on our work plan. We have identified Fairbrook Optimist as a underutilized property in Parks and Rec, and we're targeting that for the dog park. We have some supporters for that project. There's a photo of Fairbrook Optimist, and there would be two sites, one for larger dogs and one for the smaller dogs. And that's in our work plan, and again, subject to funding. We want to continue to enhance the city's efforts in developing greenways and trails in accordance with the Greenways and Trails Master Plan. That's on our long-range work plan. And an item that's carried over from last year is the Henry Fork, the development of an outdoor amphitheater at Henry Fork. Sandy Pines has been on the work plan and continues to be. That property is right off of 29th. If you know where Church of the Master is, it's located there. It's undeveloped now, but it is in the master plan to be developed into a park and recreation facility. There's a picture of that property. And to continue to explore the Park and Recreation Commission's recommendation to pursue aquatic recreation facility. This is an iterative process. We have a very successful program in place with the YMCA right now, teaching swimming lessons. It's been an amazing turnout for that. The numbers continue to grow. We feel like the splash pads that we're talking about is a step in this direction, and we'll continue to pursue that. And that's our plan. We thank you for your continued support of Parks and Rec. We have a very active commission, 12 members, and the staff does an amazing job. The Leisure Pursuits magazine is indicative of that, and any questions that you might have, I'll answer. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Parks and Rec is one commission we never have trouble finding volunteers.
No.
And I don't think it's mentioned here, but Zara's Treehouse will be constructed and finished before the middle of the year.
Construction fence is up.
And that will be a wheelchair accessible treehouse. You can enter it from the road, the sidewalk, anywhere on that park. You can enter the ramp for it, rather. Okay, public art. Once again, backed by popular demand, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. Here to present the Public Art Commission's work plan and budget for the next fiscal year. Just for some of the accomplishments from the preceding year from the Public Art Commission, they restored 2 benches out of the total of 61 benches now either around the city or in the process of being placed in the city. These 2 benches had been beat up a little bit over at Highland Rec by skateboarders. So we found a local artist who did a phenomenal job of restoring both benches in a short time period at a very, very low cost. She's restored 3 or 4 of our benches now and does a phenomenal job, and it's great that she's right here in Hickory. We're in the process now of completing phase 4 of our On the Bench project, which will give us a total of 61 around the city. 12 benches were done this past year. They are being in the process of being installed, coordinated with the Public Services Department, specifically Landscape Services. Steve Miller, Chuck Hansen, John Hogan have been a real blessing on getting these benches out in the public. These are just 3 examples. Of course, the bench on the left is representing Lenoir-Rhyne University, and we asked the university if they would like to site this bench on their campus, and they have agreed to do so, and that'll be done this spring. On the bottom, in the middle, we have a picture of the Oxford Dam. And on the right, we have a bench that represents youth and diversity that will also be installed as a bus stop at a location in Southwest Hickory, where a number of folks, especially senior citizens, have been sitting on the curb waiting for the bus. So this is something that I've been coordinating with Lieutenant Brian Adams of HPD. We've been involved, Public Art Commission has been involved with sculptures the past several years, and a picture that Park and Rec Commission showed was the 3 baseball statues at LP France Stadium. That was done by Harlan Rose, and those 3 statues were done by Harlan Rose and Sons about 2 years ago. The city, through the Public Art Commission, paid 50%, and Charles Young and his wife and family paid for the other half. So they've been getting into sculptures. The sculpture on the left is Flyaway by Harlan Rose and Son from Yonkers, New York. They again did the baseball statues. And the Public Art Commission worked with my department, Landscape Services, Public Services, and of course St. Aloysius Church donated the sculpture to the city of Hickory to represent the 100th anniversary of the Catholic parish here in the city. So that's been very well received. The sculpture on the right was dedicated this past summer. It's by Carl Billingsley. He is a professor at ECU, lives just outside of Greenville, and it's called Convergence, and this is placed at Carolina Park, Sally Fox Park. You can see the Women's Resource Center in the background. That was a biggie, and again, we worked in conjunction with Chuck Hansen's folks to get that put up. I asked the Public Art Commission, but we couldn't leave it. We couldn't carry it up that far. So, the next couple sculptures that you see have yet to been placed. They've been commissioned. They have been completed, and they are awaiting placement by city staff. The sculpture on the right is called La Dola. It is by local Hickory artist Joel Urity, and that will be placed on the corner of Highway 127 North and First Avenue Northeast in Sally Fox Park. It will be very visible from that major roadway. It's a great local piece. The piece on the left has an interesting story. It was done by an artist named Mike Roig out of Carborough, North Carolina, and he gave us, all of the artists give us a pretty good city discount for the piece. They like to work with municipalities, and we like to work through the Public Art Commission with local artists. This piece basically was originally called Another World, W-H-I-R-L-E-D. It represents a pinwheel. It's about 8 feet tall. It's made out of aluminum and brass, and it does move in a relatively strong wind. There's no sharp edges or anything. And we were looking at placing this in Sally Fox Park as well. But then I've talked to Mac McLeod, who's talked to his Parks and Rec Commission, and I talked to the Public Art Commission, and Mac and the police department and Chief Atkins had spoken with a lady which represents a local social and human services group that deals with abused children, and I believe that April is National Commemorative Month for Abused Children. And so, you know, we had a conversation, and there was discussion of having a nice sculpture at Kiwanis Park at the Zara Baker playground. And a few of us put our heads together, and we thought this would be a really good addition, not knowing that the pinwheel is the symbol for abused children. I guess we should have remembered that from last year when there was a bunch of them around town, but we hadn't thought of it, and so we thought this would be a great idea. So I talked to the artist. He hadn't heard of the story of Zara Baker, and he looked it up on the internet, and he and his wife called me back. His wife and he became very emotional about the story, and he said that he would be honored to have it at the Zara Baker Playground as one of the focal points, on the condition that we would allow him to help us install it free of charge, and that it be renamed Zara's World. So he will be, we're looking at getting him here sometime in the month of April for an official dedication, and you would all be invited. So I've been pleased to work on this aspect of the project to date. The 2014-15 Public Art Commission work plan, again, continue the public art program with sculpture and painting projects. I think we've pretty much saturated the market with benches. We're looking to do something different, provide outreach and educational efforts to build support in the city for public art, and some of the initiatives include the final development of the Art Walk brochure. I've been having the pleasure of working with Dana Kaminsky in the communications department with that, and we've just been putting it off to some of these benches and sculptures are done this spring, so we can have a nice map of the expanded City of Hickory Art Walk and a nice color brochure. Actually looking at updating and expanding the website and providing for continuous maintenance of existing artwork. We do, my staff and I complete an yearly inventory of the public art and see what kind of dings or scratches or gouges we have to, and try to talk to the original artists to get them come back and do the work. We've had modest success with that. I believe the budget is $1,000 more than last year, so the total requested amount by the Public Art Commission to Council is $17,500. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have this evening.
Out of the 61 benches, how many artists were involved? Approximately, I mean.
I would say approximately in the low mid-40s.
That's great.
Some artists have done several benches, and they're all interested. They've all been interested in doing more. And since this project's been done, even before my time, my tenure with the City of Hickory, was still done through my department. It just received an outpouring of support, and there's been numerous artists, and the Public Art Commission always has had during all 4 phases, basically a contest. They bring in all the work and they vote on them. You just put the stickers like you see at a charrette, which you've all done so many times, and we make the awards, and the artists are thrilled about it. One artist, the first piece he has ever done since graduating from college was one of our benches. And when we picked him, he couldn't believe it. He was like screaming on the phone. He was so happy.
Have you calculated how much seat time has been spent on those benches?
It depends on how hot it is. I mean, they're metal.
Or cold?
Yes, or cold. We haven't had to scrape anybody off yet, have we, Chuck? Thank you.
Thank you. And thank our own David Jagger Rowley for his role in the benches.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Recycling Advisory Board, Norm Mears.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Crone, Mr. Berry, appreciate the opportunity to present the Recycling Advisory Board's work plan for 2014. I wanted to note that it's rewarding that Hickory has been a leader in recycling and percentage of households that do recycling for a number of years, and with the curbside recycling, that's really been a good program that's gone on for a while. Certainly the benefit is the diversion of waste from the landfill, as well as some of the state rules that have come out of eliminating some of the waste streams from the landfill, so we're able to fulfill those requirements. Some of this comes from the loyal members of the board. There's been some members on the board that have been there for over 15 years since the start of curbside recycling in Hickory, and we do have a couple of opens and are always welcoming at-large members, so we look for some new blood as well as the folks that have helped lead this for a while. And thanks to the City and City Council for the support of recycling, we've been able to expand the scope and get education to the students and to the citizens over the years, and that's worked out really well. Some of the additions have been some of the paper at curbside, some of the things at the drop-off centers like mixed paper, oil, some things like that. So it's good to continually improve and expand our capabilities. The major objectives of the work plan this year are, as before, it's to identify areas of low participation, try to help with the education of schools as well as the community, and try to expand the scope of the recycling that we're able to do. One of the major things that's going to happen this year is to start to prepare for what's called single stream recycling. So single stream is where there is a single container that the household has that brings out the curbside, and all the recyclables are dumped together into one and sorted out at the person that picks it up, the recycling center. So therefore, it's easier for the citizens just to throw everything in, whether it's bottles, plastic, and it'll expand the scope of the plastics. We can take mixed paper, newspaper, all just goes into one basically roll-out container that gets picked up by the city. Will do a lot to reduce the tonnage that much more. I think it makes it that much easier for the citizens to do this and just get everything all mixed together. So what we're going to do, that's planned to happen in the 2015 timeframe, but in preparation for that, the recycling board will spend a lot of time benchmarking against some other cities that have implemented this, look at how do you educate the citizens, how do you tell them how to implement the changes, what you can really put in the containers and what you can't. So major one is preparing for that. The other major objective we have is to improve our web presence on the city website to make it where there's a really single source of information for recycling, where the citizens can go and see what do you recycle, if it's something that we don't pick up curbside, where can you take it. We have plans to have a little more information on there about some of the local companies that do some things, like metal is not really in the recycling program, but you can take it to places and have it recycled, as well as things like furniture where there's a reuse type of application for it. So a lot more information on the web is one of the plans we have for this year also. The only budget request we have is similar to the same we've had for a number of years, is $3,000 to support the program that we do with the fourth grades in all the elementary schools. We do it jointly with Catawba County. It's a play that's put on about trash, so it sort of makes it fun, keep it updated about what is recycling, and it helps educate the school children and meet some of the education objectives. So that's the one thing that's in the budget request for this year. Has been there for a number of years. It's a similar thing each year. And I thank you for your support and the good results Hickory's had, and we look forward to doing a lot more with single stream happening in the future. So thank you.
How do our results compare year to year, and also compared to our neighboring and other communities in the state?
We've been really steady. The numbers are about 75% of the households, so it really looks at the household itself. With that, we've always compared favorably around the state, and I think it's stayed fairly steady all along. It's, it's a challenge to keep it from dropping off, but once you get people educated and they get used to doing it, it's maintained. So it's stayed really well there. One of our challenges always continues to be, how do we do more with multifamily housing? Some of the areas that don't have the true curbside programs, how do you educate people not to just mix all the things together and throw them in together with garbage at an apartment building? And it does take the support of the landlord to do those sort of things. So it excludes those. It's really the household and the curbside recycling. But we've done very well compared to the rest in the state, and it's stayed very steady for quite a number of years.
Good. Thank you, Norm.
Thank you.
Business Development Committee, Alan Jackson.
Mayor Wright, members of the City Council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, good evening. Good to see everybody. I am taking note that I'm last on the agenda of this list once again, just like I was 2 weeks ago with the arts. So taking that not as any kind of slight to me, I'm sure there was nothing intended with that, making me last on both lists, but still happy to be here all the same with that. I was here a couple of weeks ago talking about the United Arts Council, which is one side of my passion about cultivating the arts in this area. The other side of that passion is about helping the business community, and that's really what we've been trying to do with the Business Development Committee for quite a while now. This past year, we've done a lot of work working on some different city incentives, looking at some different grant and requests that we get in and reviewing those every time they come through, taking a look at what we can be doing with more innovative city incentives going forward, researching that as well. But we've also developed a few other active objectives that we try to look at on a regular basis when our 7-member committee meets. We are tackling right now the idea of creative business spaces, what to look at as recommendations to the city that we may want to explore for helping bring creative businesses, smaller businesses, startups, and making it more appealing for those businesses to want to start up here in Hickory, whether it be a creative business space that they could use, kind of an incubator setup, or looking at something even a little more different than that. So that's actually one area where we are asking for a little bit more than normally we haven't asked for anything on this particular project. This year we are asking for $1,000 towards a budget to where we can actually do a little bit of traveling and go visit some other communities where creative business spaces are being developed. We really want to look at some interesting models and not just go with the standard, well, let's just set up an incubator space and try to bring in some small businesses. We think there may be some interesting ways to help support small business or entrepreneurs that may want to consider starting up here, and we want to explore that the best we can this coming year. The solicitation of community ideas we think is really important to the business community, making sure we have a great platform for business leaders, business owners, and the general community to give us feedback on what's working, what are some ideas they have. And we set up the website hickoryspeaks.com a little over a year ago with that intent. We've been testing it with a few specific projects that we've had in the last couple of years, but we really want to start using it to really poll the community, poll the business community, poll the citizens on ideas for improving the business climate here in Hickory, and using that website as a source to do that. That website, to manage it and to host the functionality of it, is $95 a month, so that would add about $1,140 to our budget. That's something we carried over from last year that we had in our budget already. And then the fourth real active objective that we look at is the recognition of business, the programs that we try to offer to recognize existing businesses. We've very happy with the success of bringing forth some of the businesses that have been in Hickory for a really long time, recognizing them here in front of you, city council members, and letting you know some of those very established businesses that have called Hickory home for a number of years. We still want to look at recognizing businesses that have been here a long time. That's going to be an ongoing endeavor, but we also want to start turning some attention to brand new businesses. So what can we do to help brand new businesses that set up shop here to feel as much a part of the city as possible, integrate them with what's happening in the city? So we want to do that through some workshops and seminars and programs that we can offer throughout the year for brand new businesses to come and learn a little bit more about the city, how they can get more involved, how they can utilize city resources more effectively as a new business owner. So we are asking for a budget of $1,000 for the year. That's going to be a new endeavor for us, so we're kind of just going to see what we can do with that objective. But we do feel like that's very important to do. We put a lot of energy into existing businesses. We want to keep that going. We really want to start spending some time and attention on new businesses as well. Outside of those active objectives, there's still things that we do on an ongoing basis during our meetings. We get constant, throughout the year, we're going to be getting economic indicators from the Western Piedmont Council of Government. There's an annual cost of $3,500 to receive the kind of analytics we get from them. We just started getting that in the last quarter or two. It's been incredibly important for us to see metrics on how the business community is responding to some of the things we're doing. How many new permits for businesses are we getting in? What kind of job growth are we seeing in the Hickory city limits? The kind of things that are going to help us understand, are these efforts working? What's maybe working better than others? Developing and permitting, keeping a tight relationship with the realtors, the developers, the builders in this area, find out how is that permitting and development process going, what kind of feedback are we getting, and how can we improve it. Really keeping a close eye on what's happening with the project management and permitting system within the city. So we have quarterly lunch sessions with those realtors, developers, and builders to get that feedback, and that's been very successful for us. No money's needed for that particular objective. With the branding and the web portal, the hickorywellcrafted.com, that's just us acting as advisors to make sure the business community is getting the kind of information through the brand and through the website that they need. No money's needed for that objective. Keeping a close eye on what kind of micro-lending, financing, other kind of creative financing options are available for businesses in the city of Hickory. Again, that's just a research thing for us to spend time each meeting talking about. No money's involved with that. For future objectives, we do have some things that we see on the horizon, helping with some sort of support for a premier event to bring to the city of Hickory in the years to come. There's right now just very early discussions on that, nothing concrete, but we know that's something in the future we want to be involved in. The idea of internships and mentoring throughout the city and helping support businesses through that by partnering with education. We know that a lot of countywide efforts are going into right now mentoring and internships. We want to make sure we're a support to that here at the city and be available to take on some creative programs there if need be, if we don't feel like the county ones are quite robust enough for the city. And then the idea of peer networking. How do we develop a framework for industry peer groups to make sure they can swap and share information, those in related fields? We've had a lot of great success in the media and technology field doing that in the last few years. We'd like to try to roll that out to future industries as well. So all told, our requested budget for the year, $6,640, is a little bit more than what we've asked for in the past. A lot of that has to do with that Western Piedmont Council of Government, the economic analysis we get every year, and then adding a little bit of money in there for some of the travel we want to do, and as well as the seminars and workshops for new businesses. Overall, though, we're very enthusiastic about what we're doing, and we're hoping we can continue to be a resource for the city going forward in the business community. Can I entertain any questions or clarification? All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time.
And our own Alan was named by the Chamber of Commerce last week as the Community Leader of the Year for 2014. Way to go, Alan. Update on Inspiring Spaces. Is that where we are now?
That's where we are. Yes, sir.
Mayor and members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, I want to first recognize at least 3 of the members of Inspiring Spaces Committee that I could see from my seat. Meg Jenkins-Locke and Don Norwood and Paul Kersher are here, and maybe there are others. Well, so we're very appreciative of the work that this group has done over the last 18 months. And I just want to quickly recap for you what they are doing at this juncture. And that is the committee has decided to continue to meet, to continue to work through the plan and the planning process
for Inspiring Spaces. So they have committed to 2 times a month, and they have another meeting coming up. They've met twice so far, and they have another meeting coming up next Monday. The copies of the plan they've received now, and as you know, when you put a big document together, people just need to take it and read it on their own time and digest it and sort of understand it again, be refreshed about what's in the plan, and so they have those copies of the document. But the document is available to anyone in Hickory by going on our website. You can click on the Inspiring Spaces link and you can pull the full document up, and if you want to print it off, it has a lot of color photos, but you could certainly view it and print it if anyone wanted to read the full plan. It's available. So on Monday, this coming Monday, the committee will receive an update based upon our council workshop last Friday. They'll receive another update about that entire discussion, and Scott Leo from Parker Poe is potentially coming. I'm waiting on a confirmation for that, but should be coming on Monday to discuss with the committee all the aspects of their work as we move forward with a potential bond referendum in the works. And so that project is, that committee is then going to have a better perspective of what their role can be going forward. The committee will, over the next few weeks, also begin discussing what role other groups should play in the partnership with the city. And when I mean other groups, I mean neighborhood groups, business groups, and hospitals, and all of the aspects of our community that might be impacted by Inspiring Spaces. And what are those partnerships, and how do we form those with those groups through the Inspiring Spaces Committee? Related to that, and as an example, the Lackey project continues to move forward, and we have a meeting with Bob Lackey, staff does, in 2 weeks to get an update on the preliminary design for the buildings and the layout, and so we'll be excited to report back after that meeting. But that project's very much moving forward and is an example of those partnerships with people and groups in the community, and how we marry up Inspiring Spaces with their interests as well. So with that, I'll entertain questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Any observations about our meeting that we had Friday?
I was stunned with the amount of economic development, the Sugar Creek. It was an awesome trip.
Yeah. What was the relationship of the city's investment with the total investment there?
Well, the number that we saw was $3 of private investment for every $1 of public investment. I don't know that we ever saw a total number of public investment, but I guess you could extrapolate.
It was 27 million.
It's 30 million is what they said the public invested, so about 90 million then of private investment.
And that's increasing. There was building going on while we were touring.
That's increasing, but the public investment, the city, they pretty much capped theirs out.
Right.
And that area was more challenged, I think, than the areas that we have talked about. It was challenged demographically and from accessibility, and by they had to have a lot of bridges, and bridges are not cheap. But of course, the areas we're talking about do have some challenges. But I believe we can hopefully work through those. We have requesting to be heard Larry Pope.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, and City Council. I requested to be heard because I had an article that was read to me today from the Hickory Daily Record. It terribly upset me because of what our city has done to a very outstanding group, in my personal opinion, that has helped a lot of homeless and folk who cannot do for themselves for one reason or another. They have also provided a lot of services to veterans who fought for our country to keep us safe during wartime and has come home and not been able to find a place to live or employment. And because of this group, we have had folk in this city who have said they need to be closed down and moved from the old Hickory Funeral Home. They have 45 days, according to the article in the paper, to find a new location. And I will say to you, as city government, that we have a responsibility to help with whatever is needed because of the community block grant funds that could be used, in my opinion, part of it, instead of giving some of those funds to other organizations that have been receiving funds for 13, 14, 15 years. I will say publicly that I intend to lead an effort among businesses and lending institutions to secure whatever funds are needed to keep that Grace House open for those individuals who need it, who deserve it, and hopefully the city will join in on trying to keep them in existence. I know that we had some complaints from our Downtown Development Association about homeless folk being so close to their office, being seen when they have visitors coming to their office. But you know what? In my opinion, Downtown Development can find another location and move. Leave those folk alone. Because we are not doing our veterans a justice. We're not doing Pastor Grace a justice and other folk who volunteer their time and efforts in trying to assist folk who have no other choice of a place to go and hang out. Y'all don't want them on Union Square. You close the bathrooms to keep them from socializing on Union Square, but yet and still you say the Union Square is supposed to be open to everybody, but it's open to a select few. So once again, I will ask, if there is someone that you want to assign to accompany me when I go out to these lending institutions and businesses to talk to them about providing some funding to keep Grace House open, then I will say do so. If any citizen in this city wants to make a donation, I will know by the first of next week where they can send that donation to, and I will make sure that the Hickory Daily Record and Charlotte Observer gets that information and get the name of how that check that they wish to donate be made out. Thank you.
Mr. Pope, your interest in this is commendable, and I'm going to take my turn now, okay? And but I'd like to say the city had nothing to do with the foreclosure proceedings against not the Grace House, but against that building. Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of February the 18th?
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Seaver, second by Mr. Meisner. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion's carried. It was unanimous. Everyone is present. Motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Patton, second by Seaver. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That's unanimous. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Motion to approve?
Move be approved.
Second.
Motion by Meisner, second by Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion is carried. Public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I'll call on the city's Public Services Director, Mr. Chuck Hanson, to present a requested resolution in order for petition to close a portion of E Avenue Southeast prior to council opening the public hearing.
Yeah, this is actually a reopening of a public hearing that was continued to this date.
We'd like to reopen the public hearing that was continued to this date.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mayor, members of council, again, this is the reopening of the public hearing that was previously advertised, and I'll try to go through in a short period of time sort of what we understand the request to be and some of the conversations we staff have been in up to this point. Moretz Mills LLC has petitioned the city to close a section of E Avenue Southeast between 7th Street and 8th Street Southeast. Sort of just get you oriented on the project area, if you will. This is Lenoir Boulevard. The railroad tracks are essentially right in here. Here's the Holler building that was just recently renovated. This is Moretz Mills. This is E Avenue. This is 7th Street. This is Catawba Paper Box. This is 8th Street, and this is, you'll hear us talk about 8th Avenue Drive. We'll be speaking about 8th Avenue Drive, E Avenue, not much about 8th Street, but we will be talking about 7th Street here. This is the city's water tank over F Avenue area. Tate Boulevard is sort of right off the bottom of the map, running left to right here. This is north on this map. So that's sort of the project area. The petition, as a request as it originally was requested, was closing E Avenue from what I call this eastern point here all the way to 7th. Last week that request was modified to essentially shorten that section requesting to be closed. And so what you see in sort of the blue shaded area is the area requesting to be closed. So again, the eastern point was about the same. It moved west to this location. The magic thing about this location, if you will, property-wise, this is Moretz Mills. Moretz also owns this property. This is showing as two lots. I think it's been combined now, but essentially this is owned by Moretz. This corner lot and this lot are essentially owned by Allied, which is essentially a telephone company. You'll hear me refer to it as AT&T for simple explanation. The next slide is a little bit of a blow up. This is Catawba Paper Box, Moretz Mills. Here's you can sort of see the property ownership on this. Allied Wireless Communications owns these two lots. Again, this is 7th Street. E Avenue is here. The reason for this slide is to give you just some of the basic data, if you will. Both of these, all of these roads, with the exception of Lenoir Boulevard, are relatively old roads, been in the city many years. The road width itself varies on both of these. This is about 19 feet, 20 and a half, 20 and a half. 23 here, 22 here, 21 here. So, you know, they're pretty similar in road. F Avenue Drive is maybe a foot or two wider, but not a whole lot. The right-of-way, again, it also varies in this dimension. This is the right-of-way line or the property line as we know it today. E Avenue varies from about 37, 38 feet to 49 or 50 feet. F Avenue, the right-of-way, again, you can see the two yellow lines. It varies sort of from the low 50s up to the high 50s. So that's sort of the basic background of essentially both of those roads. These two intersections were both rebuilt as part of the Lenore Boulevard project. They both function the same way, left in, right out, if you will. Little background data. I think one of the things, we'll pick up on one other slide, but one of the things you'll hear from the properties speaking later, E Avenue comes essentially directly into Catawba Paper Box. This area is being proposed for parking for the renovation of redevelopment of the Moretz Mills property. So those are sort of two key points in part of this, which we'll get into in maybe another slide, and you'll hear from the presenters later. But our understanding is this is sort of one section of the building, and this is a second section of the building here. This building here, if you come along just about in this location, this section right here from A to B, if you will, has a basement in it. And the reason for wanting to close this section of E Avenue is to grade that area down so they can daylight that basement to expose it with the windows and everything. Those windows that are there today, like a lot of the buildings in this area, they're built very close to the road. They're sort of a retaining wall and a window well, if you will, that those windows function in now. And this area would be graded down from about this point to about this point to daylight those windows as part of the redevelopment plan. Don't get lost in all the lines on this. And I'm gonna have a couple of slides like this that we engineers look at that bore everybody else, but this is E Avenue, this is the Moretz building, and again, sort of, this is the area they're wanting to grade down and then tie back in at 7th Street as it exists today. This is a picture of a truck, and if a truck were to make this turn and head on down the street somewhere here, you can see he's probably going to cheat across the road, and this is the edge of the pavement on the west side, and probably a little bit into the gravel parking lot that exists in Catawba Paper Box. If it's coming straight into the Catawba Paper Box parking lot, it's going to, pretty much come straight across the intersection and into their existing parking lot. So this is the way this intersection basically functions today. That's current situation. I've moved down an intersection on you here. This is F Avenue Drive. Here's the AT&T property, if you will. Catawba Paper Box is here. E Avenue is up off the top. This angle is smaller than 90 degrees as F Avenue comes in. You can sort of see, imagine the center line here, and then it turns back hard right. What we've looked at in this is what can be done to this intersection to improve it so that truck traffic can actually maneuver that intersection a little better. I think you'll see from one of the presenters a little bit later that they've filmed the truck making this turn and essentially staying on the existing asphalt that is there. Truck in today's term probably cheated a little bit, getting over a little bit. There's a lot of intersections in a lot of towns where truck traffic has to do a little cheating to make the turns they have to make. What we're showing in this and what Moretz has agreed to do, I think you'll hear in our conversations, Moretz Mills also owns this lot here. So what you're seeing is a sort of turning movement of this truck cheating over into what is a grass lot right now. Imagine a little bubble of asphalt being built in here to keep that truck on some stone and asphalt in this intersection. It changes the alignment of somebody heading south a little bit, but that can be handled with striping to some extent. But it does allow that maneuver. If you cheated, made a swing this way and made that hard turn, you'd probably stay on existing asphalt as it is today. So that's what this photo is sort of depicting, that you probably, in order to keep everybody out of the mud in the future, you probably need to add some asphalt in this corner. In this case, the advantage is Moretz owns this property and they're willing to allow that to unfold that way, is my understanding. All right. From a staff standpoint, we have what we're calling an option A and a B. They're not prioritized. It's just something so we can distinguish between the two. Option A sort of has two steps. One of which we really just talked about, and that's doing some work at this intersection, which I'm calling the northwest corner of F Avenue and 7th Street. They expand roadway into lot, this is 2347, by 32 feet. Now, I don't mean we need 32 feet of asphalt. You probably need about 20 foot of asphalt, but you got to go and do a little bit of grading because it's a little bit higher than the road, so you got to sort of put a slope in there. So you're going to be into that lot about that far, but you're probably talking about 20 foot of asphalt in this wide spot here from nothing back to that. LTL, sorry for the terminology, that's less than a truckload, so that's how, in trucking industry, that's how they refer to that. When somebody's coming to pick something up and not a full truckload. So a lot of our understanding is a lot of this will be less than truckloads loads, and that may get clarified a little bit by some of the other parties. So one step, or step one, if you will, is to create this bubble, stone and asphalt, by Moretz at their expense and the property needed for it to go on. Staff recommends that this become a four-way stop. Currently, 7th Street has the right-of-way, F Avenue Drive has the stop signs. We would recommend that a stop be placed here and here. That would allow, again, if there's a vehicle a car sitting in an intersection and a truck does come up, that'll allow them to clear the intersection and move on. But again, it's very low travel there.
Can I ask one question while you're in? When you said we need to work this, the city's not doing any work there, are they?
In this case, no. This would be at our staff's recommendation is this would be at the expense of Moretz, and this would have to happen before E Avenue was closed to the traveling public. I mean, you can make an effort to close it if you choose to close it, subject to this being constructed on the ground.
Is this would this be public right of way?
My recommendation is it would be right away.
The bubble would be
right away.
So we would be built to city standards.
Yeah, that would be essentially the correct depth and everything that it would have to be, and we would look after that from a construction standpoint.
Maintain.
And it would just become part of our maintenance.
Part of our road system.
Now, with that said, I want to go to step two.
Before you go there, you said that was coming this way, but if the truck is leaving the other way, what does that radius?
That allows them to cheat a little bit this way. Again, this maneuver is a little easier because they have a little more room to make that, but this same bubble allows them to cheat this way and make this swing going out.
So
because they're hitting the far side of F Avenue.
On this number one that you're going over, the closing would be conditioned upon the transfer of title and
this being constructed
to meet DOT requirements,
city standards. In this case, city
standards, and then subject to our usual easements for power lines and
it'd be normal city. Well, in this case, let me get to step two to try to answer that piece. We feel like the ultimate answer in this scenario, in this option A, is this. We understand that there's interest and has started for Moretz to essentially purchase this property, and I'm going to back up a few slides on you here. Again, there's two pieces of property here. We're talking about this corner first, is where I showed you as step one. We're going to talk about this corner next. So if and when in the future Moretz acquire these properties, especially this property, then we feel like there needs to be some work done on this, what I'll call the inside corner, the northeast corner. Here's step two. This is this northeast corner again. Here was the building I was showing you. At some time in the future, if and when it happens that this property is acquired, then we feel like they should donate the necessary right-of-way to the city's design standards for this truck traffic radius to be opened up to allow this to be constructed. And at this stage, not knowing when that may be, at least from our standpoint, this is a relatively easy fix on the ground. Then the city, our staff recommendation, the city just do that. And property owners donate the right-of-way that's necessary. Sorry. Property owners donate the right-of-way that's necessary. If you follow this property line, comes to right there and then back, and really what we're talking about doing is cutting this corner off. It falls off the road. That would have to be filled in a little bit. So it's not a ton of property there, but it is a tight corner there, less than 90 degrees. And what that does is it allows this bubble to probably even go away in the future. And if something develops on this, then this little bubble of right-of-way could be closed at some point in the future.
Who would be donating the right-of-way for that?
The way the staff's comment is if and when in the future the Moretz purchases this, as they say they're looking at doing, then they would have to do that. That would just be one of the motions subject to in the future, if and when, then they would donate what's necessary from the city design on this corner to make this radius work. So that's sort of step 2 of option A. So the first one, this happen immediately, even before the road is closed on the ground. It could be closed on paper or by motion here, but before it happens on the ground. So there's sort of an order that has to happen in the field for that to happen. Okay, that's option A. Step 2, again, working the northeast corner of that intersection. Still stays a 4-way stop, functioning just like in step 1. All right. Option B, obviously we've heard from this property owner concerned about their truck traffic coming in and out, utilizing what they have today. The blue hashed area is what you see is what's been requested to be closed. Under this option B, if the road is not closed, then the city, and in option A still, the city would allow the developer to grade in this area of the opened right-of-way. In this scenario, if the road's not closed, the city still allow the Moretz, the developer, to grade within the road right-of-way, to daylight the building, open it up. In that scenario, that appears to definitely force all their parking across the street versus some of it being in what would be closed. So with the parking here, they would have to cross a live roadway, whatever traffic is on. It's very little at the current point in time, and hopefully there'll be more in the future for everybody's sake. But at the same standpoint, you end up with a crossing area in here. This don't get lost in the lanes. This is sort of showing 4 lanes. This is more for just a pictorial standpoint of you would have signage approaching the crossing area, and you'd have signage, and you would have shark's teeth identifying the crossing. And this is something sort of like you see in over at Lenore Ryan College, going to the baseball field track area. Wouldn't recommend a sign in the middle of the road because in this case there would be truck traffic in there, but you would sign it on the shoulders and a painted, not a raised, but a painted crossing area in that scenario. So that's sort of the two options. I'm sure you'll hear pros and cons from both of these options from the party speaking after me. But from a staff standpoint, option A will work with improvements. Option B will work with improvements from simply a traffic standpoint. I'm not talking about the functionality of this business or this business and the concerns that they have with regard to changing or utilizing either option A or B.
The only difference is a safety factor.
Safety factor comes into play there.
For pedestrians.
Yes.
But in option B, the quality of the road and the width that the truck would have would still be the same.
Pretty much the same as what you see this there today.
Still be a straight shot into the business.
Yes.
Okay.
And is option B leaving the road open?
Option B leaves the right-of-way open, but allows Moretz to essentially grade in this as they need to and relocate the utilities as needed to daylight the windows.
And then replace the road.
And replace the road.
Have to replace the
Correct.
road.
Yeah, all of this is at the developer's expense, if you will, with the exception of one thing on option A, step 2, and that would be that they donate the right-of-way, but the city would pay for that at some point in the future, whether that's 10 months or 10 years.
And have you've looked at, go forward one slide or a couple slides to option B. The difference in grade change to get to that intersection at F and that point right there, down to where you're talking about daylight, and what kind of drop are we talking about? What kind of slope would that roadway be?
This is going to be a pretty fair slope from here to here. Without knowing, right here at this corner of the building, again, at this corner of the building, you're looking at some pretty tall windows, and they may have this information in the presentation. You're about at grade with the basement, pretty close with the road, within a foot or two. By the time you get to midpoint, a little bit more than midpoint of this building, you're probably only exposing about that much of your windows above the roadway. So it's a fair challenge to. It's going to be a nice little climb right there.
I figured about 5 or 6 feet additional slope and about 75 feet of road.
Yeah, I think this is right around 130 feet right here. 130, 132, something like that.
I'm not sure that the city can be bound or they be bound by something that talks about the possibility of them purchasing property in the future. Is that,
understand your comment.
Is that necessary in Plan B or Plan A?
In this A, step 2, I see at least from a staff standpoint, with the understanding that they've already expressed to us that they're looking and interested in buying this property, then I think that is important for us to make that statement right now versus somebody in the future saying, well, yeah, that's fine, but you need to buy that property from me.
If we would to choose option A, I'm assuming that which would include closure of E Avenue, it could be conditioned upon an agreement that be done. Yeah, like a written agreement.
Has anybody talked to any of the residents over there near that? You're taking truck traffic and pushing it closer to a residential area?
The only folks that my staff or I have heard from is at this point is Catawba Paper Box.
I do know there's school buses going there, so there'll be children walking on that road, more so than E.
Any other questions of Mr. Hanson? Okay, let me explain our ground rules for the public hearing. We start with people speaking against the proposal and follow with people speaking for. We ask each side to try to stay within a 15-minute time frame, and we will be calling time every 3 minutes, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So that means we have multiple speakers, so we ask that you give consideration to the other people who are speaking and what they may have to say and how much time they might need. No one will leave here saying they had something urgent to say that we didn't give them time to say. With that, we ask no cheering, no jeering. This is not a contest. This is a matter of trying to resolve a situation that's important to the people involved. We sit in the position, which we sometimes do, of determining fairness and the public good and those kind of things. And it makes for a more difficult process for us, but we're used to it. We see it. With that, I will ask for those who would like to speak against it to come forward. I will call the name, and I'm going to ask that each person give their address, as is our custom. First, we have Skipper and Fan Smith. After the 15 minutes each, we have an opportunity for rebuttal and serve rebuttal. So you don't have to interrupt in order to make a statement that you'd like to make. You'll have a chance.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm Skipper Smith. This is my wife and partner. We lead Catawba Paper Box. You might remember us. We were just here a few months ago to get one of those well-crafted awards from the city and Mr. Jackson, which we are delighted with. You'll find that award in our front office alongside the two Adelaide Shuford Awards that we got for sponsoring an adopt-a spot for the city for the last 16 years. We're thrilled with all those. We're also real excited that, surprised too, that quite a number of people came tonight to support keeping the road open. I wondered if they might stand just real quick and let you see how broad-based the feelings are. Thank you. Our company and our associates are deeply embedded in this community. We love Hickory. Ours is a family firm. We have two products. On one wing of our L-shaped building, we cut real thick cardboard, and it goes inside upholstered furniture frames. All of it recycled. Roughly 45 tons a week go to different area manufacturers that go inside frames. Our boxes are made out of the same material, just thinner. All of it, again, recycled. We may well be one of Hickory's greenest companies in that we have no toxic materials or special waste concerns. And in that, we're very fortunate, too. Our boxes were principally created in the 30s and 40s for the hosiery industry. Of course, over the years, we've had to reinvent ourselves, and now our largest customer group would be the medical and pharmaceutical industry, where you might find in a doctor or medical lab 100 vials for a DNA test in one of our box, or a blood sample kit. They like our kind of box because they are very sanitary and easily cleaned. And we like to think that we're pretty quick at getting our work done too, which might help as well. We also make chocolate boxes and candy boxes and stationery boxes, any kind of odd thing that needs a package that can be reused. And the strength of that is that we've learned to be niche players, which we think is real important in this economy. This past July, Mr. Moretz surprised my staff by coming by and tell us that he wanted to pave part of our parking lot so he could share with our parking. And as he left, he also said that he owned E Avenue, which, when that word reached me, was somewhat disturbing. I immediately ran to City Hall and asked how could that be. And fortunately, I got a pretty quick answer that he didn't own the road, that the road was there for public use. Moreover, that after some study, that the city hadn't got the business plan yet there, but that city management was in agreement that the road should remain, in their words, open and unaltered. Late in December, we kind of had a rude awakening that things had changed, that we saw the road was posted announcing the resolution and that this would be coming before council. We returned to City Hall to see what was going on. Disappointed to find that things had indeed changed. Now, I'm going to get off my track just a bit because these two new options didn't reach us till this morning, nor had the site plan changed from the Moret side been seen by us before today. I will say that all of our raw materials come in on E Avenue. It has one turn off LR Boulevard and terminates exactly in our parking lot, facing our sign and our loading dock. It's easy, it's visible, it's safe. I can't believe we took it for granted. The roundabout way that we've been offered is a miserable road. I can't believe that it's as wide, Chuck, but maybe. I will tell you it's got a poor grade. It's uneven. The turn that was shown on the screen is bad. The cheating to make it work is the right word, but it's not the only concern. There's a dip as soon as you make that right turn, and we've had a number of truckers tell us that in a long truck, particularly one that might have a sleeper cab, that they're afraid they're going to bottom out. It does go by residences. It does have a poor grade. It does have two difficult turns, and even after the second turn, they still can't see our business. Whereas right now, straight shot. Sweetheart deal. The site plan that we just saw a moment ago, up until last week, showed that the parking and accessibility to the Moretz Mill was going to come both from the Lenoir Boulevard side and the 7th Street side. I'm suspicious why they're closing off that side here at the 11th hour. Because until that time, everybody that was a customer of theirs could go through. It seemed inappropriate that we couldn't. Over the last few weeks, I've offered a number of proposals that took into account the criteria of the moment. The criteria has changed, and none of those proposals have gone anywhere. Our attorneys also offered one, and time permitting is going to offer yet another one that we had an architect draw up for us this past week. But at the end of the day, we would say that trains go right through the middle of a lot of towns. Trucks go by shopping areas and commercial centers all day. And we don't see why our 3 to 5 tractor trailers a day got to be omitted, where the other side's traffic has pretty good accessibility. It just doesn't seem like a square deal. As you know, access is pretty darn vital to any business. It certainly is to ours. Some of our traffic is LTL, like Mr. Hanson indicated, but 3 or 4 a week are tractor trailer loads weighing 22 tons. It's a real concern. I'm grateful for your consideration and certainly very interested in its outcome.
As Skipper mentioned, direct access for deliveries are important to our business and for pickup. Our employees remember well the 2 difficult years we had when we were dealing with LR Boulevard being closed and having to navigate through town and get tractor trailers to our business. Accessibility is pretty critical for a business. Even Hickory by Choice recognizes and addresses this need for businesses to be accessible. Catawba Paper Box would prefer to remain in our present location, which is only a short distance from Interstate 40. We would prefer to remain on Highland Avenue and be a good neighbor. Our employees, who you've just seen so many of them that are here tonight, appreciate our location as much as our customers and our vendors do. Our employees who came tonight have expressed concern that what if we have to relocate for better access? Location's important to them. They travel far. They don't want to travel further. We don't want to move out of Hickory. More coins at the pump to get to work is not in their best interest. Skipper recently signed a contract for a new roof for our building. And after sticker shock, we said, yes, we're hanging tight. We want to be here. We've just finished renovating the bathrooms for our employees. We're also redoing the inner office, which desperately needed it. We are investing in the future with our employees here in Hickory. We envision a more sophisticated box line, and we'd like to spend the capital for the box line versus trying to outfit a new plant, a new location that's more accessible. So we want to stay where we are. We want to be good neighbors, and we respectfully ask the council to appreciate the impact of closing E Avenue on our business, not only for our business and our customers, but also for employees. Thank you.
If they came to an agreement.
Lisa Valdez.
Mr. Mayor, council members, excuse me, Mr. Berry and Mr. Crone. My name is Lisa Valdez. I'm an attorney that's been retained by Catawba Paper Box. Because as you've heard from Mr. Smith, this is extremely important to him and his company and its continued success. I will be brief because there are more people here, obviously, you've seen, that are interested in speaking. But I did want to speak to the statutes and the requirements as far as closing the road right-of-way, and that statute requires that you find that it's not contrary to public interest and that there's nobody in the vicinity of that property that's going to be denied reasonable access. Essentially, that it's not detrimental to anybody. And I think that you've heard from Mr. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, as well as the people that will speak after me, that there is detriment to this closing. If you can find those two things in the affirmative, then adopting the order would be a given. However, as far as the public interest is concerned, I think between what you've heard from the Smiths and what you'll hear further, and the fact that the request has now been revised to only close a portion, that it's not being done in the public interest, but it's being done primarily for private interest and for that development. And that the site plan shows connectivity, the site plan for this project shows connectivity remaining, but that the road be closed and that connectivity only be available for the tenants and the visitors to the Moretz Mills development, not to the public and not to people going to Catawba Paper Box and trucks, but they'll have to be rerouted. The site plan, I've got a site plan up here, and I've actually got some hard copies for you as well. The concern that Mr. Moretz, that Mr. and Mrs. Smith have had them engage a landscape architect and engineering firm to look at this further, because they extended an olive branch. They asked for an easement, seeing that the connectivity would be in place still, and that was not accepted. What they did is we engaged an engineer to look at this to show that the road can remain open, the building can be daylighted, the pedestrian traffic, and in fact it shows the table that Mr. Hansen showed, and that the parking can still be in close proximity to the entrance. So the Moretz site plan is the underlaying light gray that you see. So this is their building here in 7th Street and 8th Street coming in here. And you'll see parking spaces along the street, parallel parking spaces here. So it requires some creativity and some redesign, but we believe it's a win-win for all parties involved. Again, it allows him to maintain parking near the building. It requires that daylight the daylighting of the building that needs to be done, and allows the connectivity to remain, and the truck traffic, pedestrian traffic, vehicles to still come from LR Boulevard to 7th Street. I think that between what Mr. and Mrs. Smith have said tonight and what you'll hear, that the closing of E Avenue is detrimental to Catawba Paper Box Company. They may be only one property owner in that vicinity, but they're an important one, and they've been in business here in Hickory for some time. On behalf of Skipper and Fan, as well as Andy and Jeannie and David and the other people that are going to be speaking, we'd respectfully request that you deny this petition, go with option B, and hope that this illustrates to you that there are other options available as to what can be done for everybody to win. Thank you.
For those who may have been wondering, at the conclusion of the people who are speaking against it, we will give the equal amount of time to those speaking for it. Next, Andy Roney.
Good evening. My name's Andy Roney. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director at Catawba Paper Box. I've worked there for 9 years, and it's been a wonderful experience for me. Skipper and Fan Smith are two of the most compassionate, kind, and generous employers a person could have. All of the employees that work here understand how rare it is to find a high-quality, stable job. Because of this, our workers are loyal. One of our workers, Clarence Bullock, retired last year after working there for 56 years. We have many that have worked there for 30 years. It's my hope to work there as long as I possibly can. The day Mr. Moretz popped into our office and told us about his plans to renovate the mill, I was at first excited. I'm sure everybody is. I was excited to hear that this long vacated building would have a purpose again. I was excited to hear that the jobs that were once sent away would at least in part return. But after listening to Mr. Moretz in detail and hearing about his intentions with our property and our access, it became clear to me that this project would gravely impact the future of our company. In a small company like ours, I have many responsibilities besides sales and marketing director, one of which is purchasing. In essence, I'm responsible for all goods that come in, all finished goods that go out. We ship all across the country on a daily basis. We have materials coming in from Wisconsin on a daily basis, 22 tons of trucks. To survive, we have worked hard to expand our reach around the country, and we've been very successful in this. Freight shipments into and out of our company are extremely vital to that success. A few days after that initial discussion with Mr. Moretz, where we were out in the parking lot, and he told me about his road and what he was going to do with it. One of which was a few days later,
15 minutes.
I was leaving our parking lot in my car after that discussion, and I was headed from our parking lot down E Avenue. Halfway along the way, I was blocked by work trucks. Couldn't pass. I got out, just wanted to say how long these trucks could be here. We have some freight shipments coming through here. And they informed me, and I quote, "This road," this is the manager on site that I asked to speak with, "this road belongs to John Moretz, so we don't have to give access to any traffic. I informed the gentleman that this was the primary road for freight trucks into and out of our parking lot. And again, I quote, he said, if I were you, I'd find another road for your trucks." So, 5 months later, when we learned that the city was planning on closing the E Avenue, we felt as if we'd been let down. And through my 9 years of experience in dealing with the freight companies, I've learned that the alternative route proposed as a solution for us, F Avenue, is not an adequate road. All of our shipping companies, Old Dominion, Estes, Southeastern, have F Avenue marked on their maps as not an option. What you can't see up there is the grade of the road. It's like a bowl. When you come around there, sorry, pardon my visual aid, this is my son's little truck. You have a bowl here. You have a bowl here of the road. As this truck approaches, a 53-foot trailer with a sleeper on it, carrying 22 tons. The front, as it starts to come up, the back of that truck's going to hit the road. Nothing where I've seen addresses the grade repairment to even that. As it stands right now, our freight trucks will not use that road because of the grade, not the turn. So, one more point. All of the trucks that come to us typically come in through I-40, and then they get on LR Boulevard. As you cross over LR Boulevard, you go over Tate. And when you go over Tate, F Avenue is that first road there. Anybody who's ever driven by there, you've never seen it. It's a hidden road. Imagine a freight truck going down that road, trying to turn around amongst all of that LR congestion and find a proper place to turn around. It's just not a good fit. But let's see. I guess I'll just end with, please do not consider closing the avenue. It's my opinion that there's no suitable alternative. Thank you for your time.
Jenny Yacht Hawkins.
Good afternoon. I'm Jenny Yacht Hawkins. I schedule the inbound and outbound shipments for Catawba Paper Box. I'm concerned about closing E Avenue for several reasons. During the road construction of Lenore Ryan Boulevard, we had to stop what we were doing and go meet the drivers to lead them into the plant. Now, most drivers' GPS directs them to the wrong Highland Avenue. With Hickory's one-way streets and similar road names, I'm afraid adding more turns to this would further confuse things. I hope it will not once again result in having to meet the drivers. I asked one of the local daily drivers, very familiar, comes in there every day, same size truck, to come in F Avenue Drive last week so I could observe. He was driving a day cab with a 48-foot trailer. The trailer was empty, but the truck still hammered down coming up the hill. He had to swing at least 8 feet into the grass on the other side of the street to make the turn. And even then, his cab was still very close to the trailer. There's also a drain there, so he had to cut it back in before he hit the drain. His concerns, along with many other drivers that I've spoken to, are the too tight turns and the potential to bottom out the dip. We have 2 to 3 board trucks weighing their maximum coming in back to back. I mean, they are like clockwork. It's like they're all in a row. We often, so they weigh almost 40,000 pounds. So imagine that truck looking for F Avenue Drive. As Andy said, it's hard to see. First you come to F Avenue, then F Avenue Drive, and then E Avenue. You can see that pretty well, and then you go to Highland. So he'll have to look for the road, make the difficult turn onto the road. And most of our trucks would like to, turn left onto that road instead of coming in right, but there's a median there. Anyway, so he has to go down a hill, up a hill. He has to stop with a fully loaded truck on the hill at the stop sign, and then he goes into an immediate tight turn. If the truck were 53 feet and had a sleeper cab, the turn may just be impossible, even with the bubble there. Catawba Paper Box has been part of the community. Not only are Skipper and Fan Smith great bosses, they run a business well crafted, but they also they've often taken their lunch break to serve at the soup kitchen, along with giving back to the community in other ways. We are part of the community. With most of us looking forward to the development of Hickory because we want to continue to live and work in a nice place, we must not forget that Catawba Paper Box has continued to operate through the recession while the Moretz building stood empty. The possible closure of our direct access, E Avenue, would be a poor decision for the future of Catawba Paper Box, and it just would not be fair. I would also like to ask a question if possible. In the diagram that was shown by Mr. Hanson, how long is the tractor and trailer? Because we do have a lot of sleeper trucks coming in there with full-size trailers.
WB 40, 50.
Okay, the truck that came in was a 48-foot trailer, and overall, I called today and got the dimensions. It was 60 feet with a short cab on it, and it had to go into the grass, 8 feet. Thank you.
David Smith.
I am opposed to the closing of E Street, and I appreciate you listening to us. Like they've all stated, it will be difficult for a truck to get in and out. Our company has been there for quite some time. Skipper and Fan have been over backwards to be a good citizen of Hickory and a very good employer. If he's got extra money, he does his best to share it with his employees. We've all benefited from it. And I think from this, we may lose some of this benefits that we've been receiving. Thank you.
Lindia D. Hedrick.
Good evening. My name is Lindia Hedrick. For 17 years, I have been an employee of Catawba Paper Box. I am here tonight to support my employer, firmly believing the possible closing of E Street will result in significant negative impact on our company and our employees. To continue fully functioning, our company must have access for trucks entering and leaving this business several times a day. With that said, I appeal to you to make a fair judgment on this issue. Thank you.
David Dial, Jr.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's David Dial. I'm an employee at Catawba Paper Box. I'm also a single father and a combat veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I support the project to renovate the building adjacent to ours. I think it's a great idea, especially in the state of the American economy, to breathe new life into a city like this. But the reason that I support the renovation is the same reason that I'm opposed to closing E Avenue. In a time that demands the commitment of American businesses to continue to thrive, how does it make any sense to make a decision that would risk the detriment of an American business? I'm aware of how much the entire area is starving for change, and to be frank, the entire country is. But should that change include cutting off the access by which all of our company's motor freight arrives to satisfy a developer whose project may not even be successful? I'm not trying to say that the project is a waste of time and money, because I don't think it is. All I'm saying is that in the economic climate we're in at the moment, very many small businesses open and close within the same year. And who's to say that the small business or businesses that open in the Moretz building won't follow that same path? That being said, if the closure of E Avenue forces our company out of business or even out of the area, and then the Moretz project subsequently fails, then not only have you forced out a manufacturing company that contributes to the area as much as it can, but you've done it all for naught. Don't construe my doubt as hope that the project fails. I hope for its success as much as anyone who loves this area, because I grew up here. All I'm saying is that the possibility of failure exists at all times for all businesses. I implore you, do not increase the possibility of failure for our business and leave E Avenue open. Thank you.
That's 24 minutes.
24 minutes for those speaking against. So we will allow up to 24 minutes for those speaking in favor. And again, if they run over that 24 minutes, then we'll go back and give the other. We're going to even this thing up so everybody gets all the chance to talk that they need. Mr. John Moretz.
Thank you very much. First of all, I can appreciate the concern that Skipper, Fan, and their employees and others, neighbors, would have over that, and certainly that was my first question I had when I was looking at proposing to the city to close E Avenue. In that regard, I want to correct something in all due respect. The Skipper and Fan, that's not what I said to them that they quoted me as saying. What I went over there to do, and Skipper was out, and I met with Fan, I said what I was proposing, I wanted to close the road, going to be proposing that to close. I didn't say I own the road. I didn't say I got it closed or anything of that nature at all. What I said was that I would be glad to pave their parking lot for free for the use of their parking lot after hours for the restaurant that'll be on the end there, Moonshine and Grits, which is an 8,200 square foot restaurant. That's what I said. Subsequently to that, they immediately offered that they were concerned about E Avenue closing because F was no good and all the things, and I didn't know that much at the time. So my immediate response before thinking through it, I said, well, if there isn't a good access and it can't be made or whatever, if the city would close it, I would give them the easement for their trucks without even thinking any further, because I didn't want to do anything to affect his business. That's what I said, and that's the fact. Now, once I explored it more and looked at F Avenue, and we talked to the city traffic officials, and actually neither one of those roads, E or F today, meets current traffic codes. E Avenue doesn't do that either. And so I went to the expense and called John Clark and bought the two properties across the street from F so that I could donate to the city whatever is needed to make a reasonable traffic turn for egress and ingress, or egress and ingress, whatever those two terms are. Because I wouldn't be proposing that if it had any real validity that trucks could not go up there. I would not do it. If that could be proven today, then I wouldn't even request that to be closed, period. Secondly, or thirdly, I called Corey Gaines to bring a 53-foot trailer through. We filmed a 53-foot trailer making the turn, which y'all have had, and I assume y'all have seen. And while he made it perfectly without going off the road, he did go all the way on the other side of the lane on the left-hand side. So by granting the city and paying whatever cost that is, that would make a to-code turning lane for there. And I'll have Corey speak in a minute, but the grade up there and all that is no more significant than truckers do things 10 times that hard. But I have some points that I wanted to say, and I'm not here to speak about, I have no doubt, and I know I have mutual friends, John and Shelley Clark and many others, that Skipper and Fan do, and while I haven't been a native, I moved here in 2000, all my family, my father and his family is from Hickory, and I'm a vital supporter, or a very passionate supporter of Norine College and Corinth Church and many other institutions up here, because I do always feel, whether I was in Newton or Hickory, wherever, to be a good corporate citizen is my responsibility. So I wanted to go over what I had originally said to Skipper and Fan. The part of, I was, this is, to date, a bit low over $11 million investment. About 8-something of that million is my money, and the other 3 in climbing is some of our tenants that we have here today. These are not big business people. These are all individual entrepreneurs, every one of them. They're signing a 10-year lease, and they're doing build-out projects in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece, and so they're putting their skin in the game that this is going to be a successful venture. Today there's not a lot of traffic there, and that's the reason I said originally, if you had 2 or 3 or 4 trucks a day, that wouldn't be a big deal. But the fact of it today, we have 76% of this property leased or committed to, and that'll put over 1,200 people in and out of that area a day on average. The restaurant, around 400, the fitness center around 400, and of course there's different ways to get in there. But the security of that area, of the safety of the traffic, besides being able to grain in daylight, even though that can be done without closing it, I won't contest that. But then you got to walk across the walkway, and as you'll see here, I don't know if I can use this little thing or not, but this would be the front door and the parking right in here in front, which will all be handicap parking for the florist for the hair salon here, and this is a florist right here, and this is financial firm right here, and this is where Vitality is relocating from where they are currently today, and so that would be all that area. And the access and the safety to close I reckon it's my wife, excuse me. The reason we feel it's very vital to secure that area so that we can govern the traffic that's coming for patrons to use that area, which is really much to revitalize the area and making all our independent entrepreneurial tenants successful, is that this has been an area that across the street there, when I bought the property, I had to buy the crack house that was across the street, and that was condemned and the city burned it down. And I was hoping that this would improve property values for the homeowners, improve property values for the other businesses and stuff, instead of degrading anything. And again, making F Street however suitable it needs to be compared to the one that went right across. But the safety, if you park everybody across the street and you got to go a crosswalk and have traffic, well, I'm not really concerned about 2 or 3 trucks or his employees. But then, with this being all this other public I mean, all this other traffic of 1,200 people or 1,000 or 800, whatever it really turns out to be, then you got, if that street is open, then who knows how much traffic's going up and down there, and you never could service the patrons there, their livelihoods, and the tenants that are there. They really need that to be for the success of this property. So, let me look at my notes. So really the parking, the safety, and the security, and I would really give security the top edge of why East Street should be closed. Also, it was my thought to try to do something spectacular and not just do something that's adequate. And I don't mean spectacular at the expense of Skipper and Fan and their company, because I'm saying if F Street isn't totally viable, then you shouldn't close East Street. But something that's spectacular that the city, when you cross the Tate Boulevard and you come into that area, that would inspire other people to do other development there, and in between Holler and us, in order to revitalize, one of the core initiatives that the county and EDC and Hickory has to really revitalize that area. Certainly, as I've known, I've been trying to buy a few other properties there, and the prices have gone up dramatically. So there should be some happy people from that regard, at least. I would like to have Corey Gaines come up real quick and just talk about, he's the gentleman that drove the truck, and let him tell about his experience.
Yeah, I drove the truck for Mr. Retz there, and it was easy to make the turn as far as deliveries in and out. It won't be big of an issue. Yeah, if you show the video, I can. See, I mean, I did have to borrow some of the other lane. That's just typical for a truck driver. We deal with a lot of deliveries up in the Northeast, so this is a pretty basic turn for any traffic for us that we do handle. So like I said, we didn't even have to get over into his grass even at all. So I don't know where the 8 feet really came from, but we didn't really have an issue with it. And either coming back the other way, as far as the downgrade slope, that didn't serve us as an issue as far as going down or up it. In my opinion, it's a well, I guess you'd say, active street for a truck. I mean, I don't see an issue. Even with a sleeper cab on it, it still won't be that big of an issue, because you're talking maybe another 8 feet, as far as difference between a sleeper and a day cab. So it's a good street, and I don't think it's going to affect deliveries to the mill or not. So that's all I got.
I would like, at this time, the attendants that are here, maybe Ryan Edwards, from Southeast Retirement. Okay, did I get that right? Southeast Retirement, okay.
Thank you, John. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone. I'm here to speak in favor of the closure of E Avenue as a soon-to-be tenant and business owner at Southeast Retirement Planners in Hickory already. I have a large number of clients that are elderly, and I'm concerned for their safety if through traffic is allowed and the street is not closed. Closure will allow for added safety for those elderly patrons and all patrons. As a Hickory resident and business owner downtown, I'm proud to say our business has continued to grow and thrive as we direct our drivers that are not professional drivers through numerous turns to get to our current office on a one-way street. Safety is a main concern for us, and the reason I'm in favor of closing East Avenue Southeast. Thank you.
I would ask Todd from Vitality, please come up.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Todd Huntsman. I'm part owner of Vitality Anti-Aging Center. We're currently located back behind Fry Hospital, near the IRS building, in a little A-frame there. We've been in business for going on 8 years. and started out relatively small. We've outgrown the A-frame house we're in. We're having to take 2 levels from another rented area to expand. We're an integrative healthcare center, so we do see a variety of people. We see young people, we see elderly people. We have a chiropractor in-house that does acupuncture. So we have a lot of elderly people. Some people are handicapped with disabilities that we work with and work through. But we've been able to grow. A lot of our competition has actually went out of business in this area. We're down to a small select of us that survived this recession. We see the Moretz Mills as a great opportunity to give us the ability to expand in our size and also in our volume of service to the community. The access off of LR Boulevard there is going to be much easier to get to than we suffer from the same thing most of the other business in this area do. Hickory one-way streets, and the GPS just doesn't do it. So I'm in favor of closing the street, and it is a safety issue. One of the interesting things that I've heard from several of my patients once we've decided to let them know that we're moving is, I kind of get, so you're going to move over there? And so I question them because I'm not real familiar, but they're worried about the safety. And just from the general area over there. And so I didn't grow up in Hickory, I grew up in Morgan, so I'm around here, born and raised. And so anyway, that's what I get a lot is when you're going to move over there. And so I think having the access close is important. We're going to be on the far corner, and so we'll have road front access. And so for my patients to be able to come in and utilize the service without having to cross the road or busy traffic or trucks, I think that would be a benefit. And so, again, I'm in favor of closing the street. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, it's a pleasure to be here before you tonight to talk about this great project, Moretz Mills, and revitalizing a blighted area of our community. First, I'd like to, if I could, I have prepared some slides and some pictures, and if I could share those with you.
I'll pass them around. Yeah.
First, I want to say that John Moretz and Moretz Mills do not want to do any harm to Skipper and Fan and their business. Skipper and Fan have been good neighbors to Moretz Mills, and John wants to be a good neighbor to them. When I first got involved in this project to help John with the process of doing a street closing, the first time I met with him on site, he told me that he had visited with Fan at Catawba Paper Box, delivered the message about he wanted to close the street, delivered the offer that he would pave their parking lot, and that he heard back from Skipper that it couldn't be done because he would not have truck access.
15 minutes.
The minute I heard that, I said to John, we've got to get to the bottom of this. Because if there's no, if closing E Avenue will cut off his truck access, it cannot be done. It simply cannot be done. So at that point, we took a look at the map. You've seen the map. Chuck put it on the, Mr. Hanson put it on the screen. We knew that the turn couldn't be made from Highland Avenue because of the tight angle and because of the buildings are right next to the street. So we looked down at F Avenue Drive. And we looked at, and this is a parking schematic that shows not only our planned parking area, but also the two intersections in question, E Avenue and F Avenue Drive Southeast. If you notice, those are parallel roads. If you notice, the intersection from LR Boulevard is exactly the same. The turn is exactly the same. One of the Catawba Paper Box employees talked about having to go outside and give directions during the construction of LR Boulevard. I don't doubt it. That was like a war zone. Now that street is finished, the street signs are up, the intersection is great. So we started exploring F Avenue Drive Southeast. One of the first things we looked at, who are the neighbors? The property on the south side of F Avenue Drive Southeast, about 2/3 of it is an empty lot. It is zoned office and institutional. There are, I think, 4 remaining lots that back up to F Avenue Drive, all zoned office and institutional. Those are residences, but they front on F Avenue, the street that is one street closer to Tate Boulevard. There is one driveway and one driveway only that connects to F Avenue Drive, and it goes to the rear of a house. So we looked at that to determine whether this was a problem for residential users, and we determined it was not. We next looked at that intersection, and you know what? I'm not a truck driver. I have no idea whether a truck can make that turn. So John and I talked about it, and I said, you know, the only way to know is to get a truck in here. And don't make it a little one, and don't ask for the best driver, because we want to know, can a truck make that turn? So John called Gaines Motor Lines, and well, we ended up with a great truck driver, Corey Gaines. But we didn't ask for a special truck driver. Corey is 25. He started driving trucks when he was 18. Is that right? He doesn't drive all the time, but we called, we asked for a driver, and Corey came. I was not there when he came. But we had also at the same time been talking with the city traffic officials about this issue. Caroline Cohn, Chuck Hansen, Terry Gordney, and we told them that we were having a truck driving test. And so they said, can we come? I said, sure. We don't know if it's going to make it, but please come. If it doesn't make it, we need to figure out how to if this can work. So they came, and you've seen Corey's, you've seen the video. Corey came up to the intersection, made the turn, stayed on the pavement. Now, when John was at the intersection with the traffic folks, and they were talking about this turn, John told them that he was buying the property that is on this screen as the John Clark property, but is now owned by John Moretz, and said, look, if to make this a good intersection, we need to widen this street. I'll do it. I'm buying this land. I'll give you the land. I'll pave it. So what you see on this on the lower diagram here, this area, is what the traffic folks from the city of Hickory recommended as improving that intersection, that right-hand turn from F Avenue Drive Southeast onto 7th Street, so that that turn would meet the turn radius that the city of Hickory requires on intersections that are currently constructed today. So that's what that represents. Any intersection in the city would have to be built to those standards for a turn. Now I want to talk about that turn template, because you've seen the drawing, you saw the round shapes or the arcs on Chuck's drawings. That isn't what the trucks actually take. I mean, it's not what they have to take. It's not a minimum. It gives them room for error. It gives them a lot of room to make that turn. And it's clear that that's what that means, because you've seen that Corey pulled up to the intersection and was able to make that turn and stay on the pavement. So Chuck and Carolyn told us that needed to be John, and Johnny said he would do it. Now, so this is how this came to be. And when we talked, we have met with Fan and Skipper and Andy on the site with the traffic folks to talk about the truck driving test, to talk about these recommended improvements. And Skipper's position is that it is not sufficient and will not be sufficient access for his truck drivers.
21 minutes.
We have our own truck driver who is not, he is a truck driver who came to us at random, and that works for him, and it's an intersection that he could use every day. Now, I want to move on. You've seen the truck driving test. I want to talk about the standards for closing the street. North Carolina general statutes say that a city council may close a street if they determined that no individual owning property in the vicinity of the street would be deprived of reasonable ingress and egress to his property, and that the closing is not contrary to the public interest. Well, we've shown you that we will purchase that Mr. Moretz has purchased property and that he is committed to give the right-of-way and to pave the street so that that turn complies with current standards, current turning standards. Folks, I'm telling you, that has to be reasonable ingress and egress. You have seen a truck making that turn. I want to talk about the two different roads. The right-of-way width on E is listed on GIS, shown on GIS is 40 feet. And Mr. Hanson indicated that it goes up to 50 feet at some portions of the street, but primarily it's a 40-foot right-of-way. The right-of-way on F Avenue Drive is 60 feet. The number of turns from Tate Boulevard to make it to Catawba Paper Box: 2 if they use E Avenue, 2 if they use F Avenue Drive southeast. Let me go back to this diagram. When the trucks come up Tate Boulevard, they turn left here currently, come down E Avenue Drive, and they either have to turn right or left in order to back into the loading dock at Catawba Paper Box. This intersection, as you've heard, does not meet current turn standards. It works for Skipper and for Catawba Paper Box because the trucks can swing wide. If they come through F Avenue Drive, they make, instead of taking the third left turn, the third road to the left, they take the second road to the left, 1 block, turn right, and they make this same turn movement. So the number of turns is the same. The turning movements to access the loading dock, exactly the same, because they're accessing it from 7th Street. The distance from Tate Boulevard to Catawba Paper Box, using E Avenue Southeast, 0.3 miles. Using the F Avenue Drive, 0.3 miles. The topography at the intersection, E Avenue is fairly level, although it does slope. It does have a gradual incline toward Catawba Paper Box. F Avenue Drive does have a hill. Now, Corey didn't mention, did not discuss his experience on F Avenue Drive, but I'll be glad to call him back up here, and I believe he will tell you that he had no problem with his truck bottoming out. And if you notice, that was a 53-foot trailer with a cab, and I think that makes it over 60 feet. The quality of the intersection, E Avenue intersection doesn't comply with the current turn radius requirements. F Avenue Drive with the proposed improvements would, and it works for a 53-foot trailer. Now I want to talk about the public interest. For the past 2 years, this community has been engaged in Innovate Catawba, not just Hickory, all of Catawba County. Our businesses, our cities, our infrastructure needs improving. It needs revitalizing. This is a tremendous effort by our community to get together and get behind revitalizing our community. This property is in a revitalization area. Part of Innovate Catawba, one of the projects of Innovate Catawba is reinventing spaces, taking old buildings, rehabilitating them, repurposing them, and turning them into economic drivers. This building is located at a prominent gateway to the city. When you sit in the traffic light at Tate Boulevard, as I expect we all have, you see Moretz Mills, and you've probably seen the transformation that is taking place in that building. John has talked to you about security and safety, so have his tenants. But I will also tell you that convenient parking is critical, absolutely critical, for the success of the businesses that will locate there. Absolutely critical. We all know about Holler Mills, and we love that. The number one complaint about Holler Mills, not enough close by convenient parking. Number one complaint. This is what Moretz Mill used to look like. This is what you had. Through John Moretz's dedication and vision and substantial investment, He's going to take that, he's taking that building, and this is what it will become. John Moretz has invested substantial funds in the success of this venture. His tenants are investing their businesses. He has 11 tenants. Their businesses depend on this effort. If you see this parking plan, you will see, and if you looked at the parking plan that I had, this parking plan provides 18 spaces right next to the building, most of them handicapped. The businesses have entrances at the street. It is vital that people be able to pull up their cars and walk into their business. It is vital. So I'm here tonight to ask you to determine that if you were to close Eve Avenue, that would not deprive any person of reasonable ingress and egress. And I believe we've clearly shown that that's the case by showing you that we are willing to provide the improvements to make that intersection a turn radius that will work not only for Catawba Paper Box, but for every other business on that street. Thank you, and I'll be glad to entertain questions. Would you like to hear from Mr. Gaines about whether he bottomed out on the hill? And he's gone? Okay.
I assume he didn't bottom out.
He did not bottom out.
So we have 3 minutes allowable for the people speaking against, and then they have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Mayor Wright, I'm sorry I wasn't here to sign up. May I please speak?
Sure.
I'm sorry I wasn't here to sign up. Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crane, I'm Meg Jenkins-Locke. I am a business owner at Holler Mill, and I'm sort of speaking to this issue as opposed to speaking for either side, because frankly, we're all in this together. All of us are in this together. This should never be pitting existing business against future business. This is not what we're about. That's not about reinventing. And to quote Mr. Lael, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So on behalf of the council, I would ask, and you, Mayor Wright, to mediate this situation, to find a way not to ask these existing businesses and these future businesses in a neighborhood where I am, where we are doing our very best to reinvent, the poster child of Hickory right now. I don't think anybody would doubt that. To say to y'all, how do we make this right? If the city needs to step up and say, we'll improve F Avenue, we'll make sure that the existing business and the future businesses have what they need, and to make the roads, Mr. Hanson, at a level where they would be at a grade that would be acceptable for all of these businesses. I'm so excited about Moretz Mills. I can't tell you. I have direct competition. There's a new restaurant coming in. Do you know what we say? Come on, make this vibrant, bring it. You know what I say to Catawba Paper Box? Thank goodness for you and your employees that come and are a part of our community. Please help this group do what we need to do to all work together, as opposed to this sort of fractious environment with these businesses in our community that want to do well. I really expect for us to do the right thing, all of us, to call upon our best. And I expect for Catawba Paper Box to thrive, for your employees to have their jobs, to not be fearful. Who wants to be fearful about the future? And thank goodness for Mr. Moretz and what he's doing in this community. Please help us help ourselves. Thank you.
Now the folks who spoke against the proposal. Sir?
Mr. Mayor, I didn't get on the list earlier.
Come on up. You all remember, we have said anybody, huh?
We need to get a total.
Oh, we're going to get a total number of minutes, yeah. Right now, I think we're at about 5 minutes for the for side.
I'll be real brief. I'm Ted Cook. I know a lot of people here. Without turning around, we go statute of limitations friends right here, and Skipper and Fan are family. But had it not even been between these two property owners, I was a former property owner of what used to be the HPG facility, which is now a storage facility. Now, if I still own that, I'd be jumping up and down and saying, please do not close this road. because I will share with you the reality that is unquantifiable, irregardless of specifics for traffic such as the trucks, is all the dynamics of you can't tell what roads are helping or not helping a property. When I owned that property, I had two tenants. One was Ellis Hosier Mill, the other was Sherrill Furniture. The whole reason they were there, number one, was the priority location. Number two was if we lose any of these accesses, we're gone. I'm surprised some of the other property owners out there are not in here concerned about this. It's not just the specific access to Skipper's property that's affected. All those properties are. So I would urge you to think long and hard about closing any road. I think I saw, because I've been out of country, thank goodness I like to go back, it's warm where I've been, but in any event, I saw a proposal that Skipper came up with to maybe beautify the access road going in, which is E. As was just said, maybe you could think of a compromise. This is looking from a value situation. As long as Catawba Paper Box operates in that fashion, that's an industrial use. They need the truck traffic. But what Johnny's doing, bless his heart, but what he's doing is a brave man. It's a wonderful thing. It in my opinion, will create a transition in the uses. And then possibly the Skipper's property will change to a retail use. You may consider some type of compromise where you could allow that road to stay open as long as there's that his use is there. And if and when, because of the valuation that Johnny does to the property, it increases the value, you could transition and shut that down. Now, that's done in other cities. I know they did it in Raleigh, and they've done it in other larger urban areas where they've had transition. I just urge you, as she had said, to give some real serious thought before you close it and hopefully work this out to everybody's benefit. Thanks a lot.
I'm not sure whether you spoke for it or against it, but thank you.
I didn't. I just said, y'all work it out. We'll work together.
Okay.
It's possible.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Where do we stand on time? About 5 minutes?
That was
And you can just add that to their rebuttal
to the rebuttal time. So we're going to give the folks who spoke first against it, we're going to give you 10 minutes of rebuttal time. Isn't that about right? And then the other side will have 5 minutes of sir rebuttal. And if they take more, then we'll go back and give you more if you want it. We try to give it the opportunity to work out even. It never does.
We won't be looking at the clock ourselves, and we won't need 10 minutes. Thank you again. We just heard a lot of disinformation. Now, I have a lot of respect for John and for his project. We welcome people to invest in our town. Certainly they can invest a good deal more than we ever could. First thing I want to dispute is that the proposals that we've put forward really would not result in any kind of different kind of traffic pattern that we have in the uptown area now. It would not be any more of a threat to pedestrian traffic than what we experience all through the city of Hickory. And they feature streetscapes that the city has embraced. I think the thing that I found most disturbing was the description by you, Ms. Bradshaw, that it's the same amount of turns. Well, that's just not right by a mile. Right now we have one turn off LR Boulevard. The road terminates in our parking lot. Then trucks do have to turn around in the parking lot to get to loading dock. Trucks don't go down the road backwards. They always have to turn around to get to a loading dock. But into our property, one turn there from Lenore on Boulevard onto E Avenue. And they get to see us. Directions are easy. Visibility is good. The distance is short. The road is good. We like it. Concerning F Avenue D, there's more concern than that one turn. As soon as you get on that road, there's a good dip. And we have had a number of drivers and their local carriers express real concern to us bigger problem for us is the local carriers are bringing in LTL shipments or taking out LTL shipments. Frequently, the bigger trucks are the ones that are coming from Wisconsin or Georgia or South Carolina, or Pennsylvania with tire trailer load of a fairly heavy material. If the local carriers are concerned about bottoming out in that dip or the first turn, forget the second one. That's a real concern. The problem is broader than the last turn. It's broader than that last turn still not offering visibility. On the south side of that street, there are residential homes. They don't know what's getting ready to come. I'm grateful that John and his team are prepared to broaden that last turn to permit a greater turning radius, because right now that turn is less than 90 degrees, meaning you got to go over 90 degrees, and it's a tough one. And certainly some extra space will be there for that. But understand that John told Fan and Andy in July that he was going to get that property, and then he told Fan and I again just last month that he had bought that property for parking, not to make this project more feasible. It's great that they're going to share that, and that does solve a touch of it. We prefer having E Avenue. It's a better road. It's a safer road, even for pedestrians. We have a great account in Memphis, Tennessee that's down in a historic part or congested part of Tennessee. It's called Karen Adams Design, and they make great stuff. And the only real issue with them is they're always saying, hurry, Andy, hurry, Andy. And we do. And it seems like invariably that we get their order done at 12 o'clock, and we hope that a motor freight truck will come. And we're careful to call and see who can give service to Memphis in 2 days' time. And invariably, we get 2 or 3 that say they will, and then when they get to Memphis, Tennessee, they see where that place is in a congested area. And they don't lose a day, they lose 2 days because they can't find a driver that wants to go down in there. We're afraid that if we lose this access, that's going to happen to us. That company pays more for their motor freight because they're in a tough area, and they wait longer for it. And in the meantime, they're saying, Andy, where are my boxes? Where are my boxes? And we don't have much to say or do. I'm scared now that if this comes to pass, when we get that order ready at 12 o'clock and we're running like mad to try to get a motor freight truck in here at 2 o'clock, they're going to say, oh, Lord, we know where Catawba is. We're not going. And then we're going to charge them more, but we're not going to tell them we're going to charge them more. I've seen it happen to Karen Adams. I've seen it happen to freight that's got to go to Florida where they can't have a way back. I've seen it happen in other congested areas. Don't let that happen to us. We can share E Avenue. We've demonstrated drawings that where it works with safety. And lastly, again, I have a world of respect for John, and I hate that we got to be fussy, but Fan and Andy will give me a hard time if I don't insist that the information that I delivered up here earlier and that Fan delivered up here earlier, that the reason for his July visit was to seek our parking, and only mention incidentally that the road belonged to him. We'll have to stay with those comments. They were said.
Okay, that was 9 minutes, right?
6.
6, okay, I'm sorry. 6 minutes. So is there anyone else who would like to speak for the against side? Okay. This side has 5 minutes.
I have nothing unless council member or someone would like to. I'm just saying, Ellie, you can close it out unless you have a question. I've spoken. But
I have some questions of Mr. Hanson. We're going to get to that in a little bit.
I want to speak to you briefly about the plan that you've received. We've never, the plan that Ms. Valdez had, we have never seen it. We've never had a chance to look at it. We've never been presented with that opportunity. So I can't comment about whether that plan, I don't know what's on it except what I saw on the screen. I do see a vehicle table. I had asked Mr. Hanson about whether this street could have a vehicle table, and the answer was no. I'll also say that on the access issue from trucks, I started this out by saying, I don't drive a truck. I have no idea. So we went out and got a truck driver, and we had him here tonight to tell you about that drive. And he has told you that there are no issues, that that intersection is easily navigated by an experienced truck driver. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar project that will reinvigorate this section of Hickory. Holler Mills started it at the northern end of that street, and Johnny Moretz is continuing it on the southern end with Moretz Mills. We need this street closed. We need your help in reinvigorating that area. If you're going to ask people to invest their money, invest their time, invest their livelihoods in bringing these areas back, you have got to help. Thank you very much.
Is there still a minute to slide in?
You've got a minute or two, I understand.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to say is what was brought up. Certainly, if I'm able, in which we got offers into Altel or AT&T, whatever they're called today, to buy some of that other property. If we get that, then we're fine to acknowledge that we'll give the right-hand turning access to the city for whatever they'd want to make that part of it simpler as well. So I just want to say, to go on record, that we'd be glad to do that as well if we're able to acquire that other property.
Okay, both sides have spoken. I'm going to declare a 7-minute recess, and we're going to come back here to deliberate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Declare the public hearing closed. I declare the public hearing closed, and a 7-minute recess, and we'll come back.
So what is this about when we'll get it? Y'all heard?
You beat us, that's what I'm doing. Turn 64. Married?
Well, something I need on my iPad is to be able to upgrade Dropbox.
Oh, is that Jessel?
No, it would be great. So what I think we
Did you send him to Terry?
I'll call him. Oh, you're going to call me. Yeah.
Well, what can
Then
you
send
run
him to our
access
insurance
to Wi-Fi?
I'll get Arnita to call you. Just call me. I'll get Arnita to check.
You guys get it. He's the only every time with me. We're only halfway through the agenda. So the young guys get all the time. It's all meetings used to be.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Can't we do this?
Okay. Thank you all. The ones who stayed with us, we appreciate you. We appreciate everybody. Mr. Hanson, could I ask you to come back up here for a question or two that I have, and then we'll see what direction this thing goes in. Where would the handicap parking be if it's not up next to the building?
I'm not quoting code here, but essentially in layman's terms, it says it has to be as close as possible from the handicap accessible area in the parking lot to the handicap accessible doorways in the building. So with that said, trying to answer your question, it's going to get laid out in the parking lot wherever it has to cross, and if there is a, in the Moretz layout, it's going to be up front, closest to the doorways that it has to get to. If E Avenue is not closed and it's step back, it's still going to be in the closest area of the parking lot, closest to an accessible crosswalk area. So it's not a magic distance that it has to be. It relates to the closest accessible parking area and accessible doorway in the buildings or doorways in the buildings.
But if E Ave stays where it is, it's going to have to be on the other side of E Ave.
Correct. I don't see that would not be, you do not put in handicap parking in parallel parking, for example, on the side of the road, because you don't have the maneuvering for your wheelchairs and that type. So parallel parking is not, without going into the sidewalk usually, and then that usually doesn't work because of other problems.
I got one question. I went back through there with Skipper and Johnny invited me back there, and actually there was a truck unloading when I was back. One of the times I was back there, and but it wasn't until this gentleman made a comment that I really realized if I'm in a truck heading north, and if I'm going to turn in the new F Avenue, like I said, I've been down that road thousands of times. Is there a turn lane? How much, if I'm going to turn left on F, yes, do I get, you get a little rise, and I have to admit there's
a center turn lane there. There's a center turn lane there, yes.
Is that the center turn lane for the other people to turn left on Tate to? How are they going to negotiate that?
No, you're further away from Tate than that.
Okay. All right.
There's actually if you leave Tate, if you're on Tate headed towards the railroad tracks, headed north, you get F Avenue, right. Then you get F Avenue Drive, which is the one we've been talking about tonight, then you get to E Avenue.
But F Avenue Drive is a good distance from Tate, sufficient.
Those turning lanes do not conflict one another.
Okay.
Okay. You're coming up
F Avenue Drive.
Coming up F, you've got to swing into the left lane and then swing over into the left lane on 7th, is it 7th?
7th Street, yes, sir.
So you're technically you're on the wrong side of the road, technically. Now we all know, we've all stopped, whether good-naturedly or not, and let truck drivers have the road to make a turn. But you get on that left-hand lane, and then you come back and you're on the left-hand lane again. If you take the old E Avenue, do they have to make at any point are they going the wrong way on a one-way street? And does that affect what reasonable egress is?
Well, there's nothing in this area that's a one-way street. But if
the wrong way on a two-way street. The wrong way in the left lane on a two-way street.
If the truck is coming from LR Boulevard, headed west on E Avenue, they get to 7th Street and they want to make a right-hand turn, they're probably going to have to cheat into Catawba Paper Box parking lot a little bit with the front of the tractor to clear the right rear wheel of that trailer off the corner of the Moretz building.
Well, if they're going to the Catawba Box,
they're going to probably pull
straight ahead.
Pretty much straight ahead into their parking lot, yes.
And then there's nothing that says they may choose to go back out in the street to turn around, which means they're probably in the wrong lane.
It's going to make a loop and be in part of the lane and part of the parking lot.
But
yes.
Do they have to do that to make that turn and get back to the
loading dock?
To the loading dock.
Some probably will, some may not. But depends on which way. I mean, drivers normally back where they can see what's on their inside corner.
Is their parking lot big enough?
Their lot is big enough to turn a tractor trailer in, yes.
Okay, so they really don't have to go back out into the road?
They're going to be awful close to it if they're not in it, yeah. I don't think they have to.
But we are
depends on the driver.
But we are being asked. I'm not saying that we can't do this or we shouldn't do it, but I want to clarify. We are being asked to define reasonable ingress as going down the wrong way in a lane on both streets. Admittedly, I was out there today. There's not much traffic. I know that. That is the case. That's what we're asking, right?
There's very little traffic on both of those roads at this point in time. Again, with this type of development, E in that area, you expect it to increase.
Any questions? Any discussion?
I'd like to point out that I heard Skipper say that he did not get the 2 different proposals today until 11 or 12 o'clock. Skipper, tell me if I said that wrong. From the city. And then I heard Johnny say he didn't get this at all. So I think there is an alternative that can be done, and would like to see if the parties with city staff can sit down and take 2 more weeks and work this out so that it benefits everyone, rather than us up here having to say yay or nay to new and old development, but take the lead on it. You two sit down, and I do recommend that city staff be involved in it, of what works and doesn't work, and put some alternatives on the table, because I think there are some.
Well, city staff's been involved in this thing for 3 months. Is that correct?
I think that if they can look at it from a different standpoint.
I think that's kicking the can down the road. And unfortunately, I mean, obviously, I would be very much desirous that this be not. The rhetoric of this whole public hearing has been, you know, we're good guys and we're good guys. And there's absolutely no question in my mind that what Moretz is proposing is a good development, and what Skipper and his company have said is the truth, and that they've been a long-standing company. But I think it comes down to, as council members, we're going to have to decide on this sheet that was passed out. Would the closure be reasonable or contrary to public interest? And beyond that, I think we're on slippery ground. You know, trying to mediate or work out some dispute between neighbors out there, and you know. And
can I say one thing, or is that just for y'all's?
No. I do feel like there is another alternative of what is the street behind E. If you're looking there, what's the one over here with like 3 little houses? Anybody can tell me what street that is?
Behind you? 8th Street.
Is that 8th?
8th Street.
As a way to use part of that for parking. I just think there's an alternative there, and I would like to see the parties work it out.
I mean, you know, I agree the public hearing closed, and Johnny shouldn't speak, but if Johnny thinks that he can work this thing out,
then I'd like
why don't you make a motion that he be allowed to speak?
I would.
That's the one.
I'd like to make a motion to hear Mr. Moretz speak.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no?
No.
Okay. Another thing I thought of, you know, is the alternative we say of closing F and doing that one curve, you know, which makes it, you know, from traffic standards, as compliable as the other road is, you know, whether that's, you know, 2 bad options or 1 good and bad option. But the other possibility is I just grant the whole Clark property that I just bought, and then you make a turn-in lane in there, or you make 2 turn lanes to the right, so that the trucks from F Street do never cross the incoming or the outgoing traffic coming from the other way. When that's another option to where, you know, there is no doubt that is a reasonable access.
I'm a little bit confused. You keep saying F. Are you talking about F Avenue Drive?
Yes.
Or F Avenue?
F Avenue.
Avenue Drive. Okay. Yes, sir. All right. I'm just saying, you know, right now we're just saying make a little dip in there. Well, you know, why not take as much all of it or all of it as you need to have a turn lane for the trucks to have total access there to turn.
Thank you.
So there are alternatives that they could possibly work out that would make a win-win for both and also have city buy-in on helping this process. If we're into redevelopment, we need some skin.
Let me just get to the legal nitty-gritty here. You've had a public hearing. The public hearing is closed. The issue is whether to close the street or not. Either close it, period, or close it subject to conditions, as maybe you've heard tonight, or not close it. Anything else before council, you'd have to ask that your determination of the hearing be postponed to a time certain. And if they work something out, fine. And if they don't, you still got to come back here and make the decision. But as far as any other alternatives or anything other than what's been presented tonight, the issue before council is whether to close it, to not close it, or to close it with certain contingencies tied to it.
If we close it, is that and nothing's forever, but is that for a year? If we say close it, that's forever unless we reopen it. But
no, you can't reopen it.
Can't reopen it ever.
Once you close it, the adjoining property owners own up to the middle of the street that's closed. So in this case, Mr. Moretz owns both sides of the street. So if the road is closed, it's closed, and that's his property.
And vice versa, if we choose not to close it, how long do we have before we could come back and make a different decision?
Well, I don't think there's any statutory time limit unless some other lawyer smarter than me, which is probably in this room right here. No, I don't know of any reason why you can't bring it before council again.
So we can revisit it if we don't close it, but if we close it, we can't revisit it. Is that what you're saying?
That is basically correct.
Okay. Also, I guess, not to, in the broadest sense, we're not called to make a decision with regards to Catawba Paper Boxes movement of truck traffic. I don't feel called in that sense. I recognize that's an important part of their business, but we're called to decide whether that property that Catawba Paper Box owns now, it may not own in the future, realize that they could sell and it could become another use. Whether it's the access that if we close the road, whether there would still be reasonable access to that property. And I think that's the at least in my mind, that's where this sort of legal piece is cutting, because I have no way of deciding this other than purely as to adjudicate, as if we, which means read the statute and make the decision based on the statute and not based upon we're going to do this, or we might be able to do this, or I got a picture of a truck doing that, and all that was just sort of out there.
Well, so all of it has relevance to reasonable ingress.
Well, it may, yeah, it may, but certainly the road network in that particular neighborhood for a lot of types of traffic would not be considered to be reasonable as it exists now. I mean, those buildings are right up on the front of the road. That's just the reality of it, as we're seeing with Moretz and its redevelopment. And same as I think the buildings at front on Highland Avenue, they're right up on the front.
Well, these are the kind of issues that as we are in this redevelopment phase, we're going to see more and more of these kind of issues, because there will be counter interests involved, and we want to encourage redevelopment, and we don't want a reputation that we will step on all the small business owners who are in the way. So that's just the dilemma here, and I personally like the idea of giving them one more chance to work it out, regardless of what we have to do, involve the city to talk about leveling out that, possibly part of the deal could be leveling out that bump in the road that I saw today. I was in a Prius, I did not drag, but there is a bump in the road there, and I can see that there possibly could be some tractor trailers that would drag there.
And two, I think to make this work, the city needs to be willing to spend some money to help this redevelopment. I mean, we've spent with Holler Hosiery, we did lots of grants that we helped with it. Johnny has not asked for anything, but I think this is time that we step up and say, let us see what we can also do to help this work out. And I still think you said the handicap access. Is there any access to the back of the building that could be for handicap accessible? I'm not supposed to ask you that. I'm sorry. I haven't seen all the ins and outs of the building, but as I said, I think there are alternatives that this can work for both parties and work for the city.
And we talked about F, but looking at E, the city has at its disposal a number of traffic calming devices that could possibly factor into this to make E more palatable to the other party. So,
but you don't want handicapped parking across the street to have to, no matter what kind of traffic calming, you don't want handicapped going across the street.
But we have a lot of challenged places in this city already.
Did I hear you correct, Mr. Crone, that we, as a council, we can decide that we need more time to think about this? Is that one of our options?
One of your options is the hearing is closed. You can move to postpone determination of the hearing, of your ruling on the hearing to a future date.
Well, personally, I think that's the best option. If I was forced to take a vote tonight, I would have to vote to keep E Avenue open, simply because if we vote to close E Avenue, that is a permanent fix. That we're done then. If we vote tonight to keep it open, then we can come back at a later time if they come to some kind of other conclusion and have a discussion.
I mean, like I said, you can vote it up, you can vote it down, you can vote it up with conditions, or you can postpone your determination until a future date. It's kind of like when a lawyer tries a case in front of a judge and both sides have pretty good cases, and the judge says, boys, I'm not going to tell you which way I'm going to rule in this case, but you guys better get out there and talk about it. So, I mean, that's kind of what you're doing if you postpone the determination, but that's all you're doing because the public hearing has been closed.
I would be in favor of postponing the determination.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Guess.
That needs to be, by the way, that needs to be to a time certain.
Next council meeting?
2 weeks. I make a motion that we postpone the determination till the next council meeting.
I'll second that.
At March 18th?
Yes.
We have a motion by Mr. Guest, second by Mrs. Patton. Let's do this with a show of hands to make sure I get the vote right, okay?
And let me ask a point of order, or a point of just so that the public hearing is closed, so we have to make a decision. We can't.
You can't get new information.
No, you can't get any new information.
No. The staff, nobody can get additional information?
No, it's the public hearings. It's over.
But now, if any parties come to some kind of conclusion that's public knowledge, then we can share that, correct?
I advise you not to really talk to anybody or get it. I mean, this isn't an evidentiary hearing. This isn't a quasi-judicial hearing. So, but as far as, it's a public hearing. The public has a right to hear what people say back and forth. That's the reason we had the public hearing. The public hearing's closed. Everybody had ample time for and against, rebuttal, serve rebuttal. So either make a decision now or you make a decision in 2 weeks. And there's,
The parties would not be able to come to us and say we've reached an agreement?
The parties, if they reach an agreement among themselves, because I don't think at this point it's the city's obligation or whether it's the city's role to get involved in the situation right now. The public hearing's been had.